What's going on, you guys? It's your boys. It's the crew. It's Odds HQ and Odds.com. And we got a big one, the banger, UFC 257. We got Dustin Poirier squaring off against the notorious Conor McGregor. Should be an incredible card, incredible lineup. I'm going to throw it around and we're going to get right into this. Let's kick it to my man, MMA Prediction Guru. What up, Guru?
Yeah, man, I feel like we were just here for the Tuesday card, and we're right back at it. And this time it's for, an awesome card, man. Maybe even the card of the year. I mean, who knows? It's on paper. It's a really good pay-per-view for the first pay-per-view of the year. And, the weigh-ins and everything that happened today, I mean, we have some other craziness to talk about too. So, a lot of stuff went down. But, yeah, man, I'm ready to get into it.
Definitely. Let's kick it to my man, MMA LOTN. What's up, man, Preet?
Yeah, I was telling you guys off air. I feel so exhausted with these two back-to-back events. Now we got a third one. It's kind of like somebody forced me to sneak into a hotel and scale from balcony to balcony and try to drop off a bag somewhere, right? I'm just so pooped, guys. But thankfully, we got UFC 257 to pick me right back up. We got Conor McGregor in the main event. Super excited to get this going with you guys. And let's get into it.
No doubt money never sleeps. CJ Saftic, what's up, Cody?
Yeah, happy to be here. Events like this is why we do it, right? Because you guys all know we break down every card, every fight. Eventually, sometimes maybe it does feel like a task, but those big crown jewel, Conor McGregor type fights, the Khabib fights, the big prize fights that draws in that casual person, that draws in that expanded audience. And now we have more viewership, a bit more eyeballs on us. It's time to deliver. So we got a nice offering here from the UFC. Really happy to be joined by the Odds Squad and happy to get into it.
No doubt. Well, I tell you what, let's kick it to my man, MMA LOTN, to start us off tonight with Amir Albazi going up against Zhumagulov. Lock, hit us with it.
Yeah, no, I've been excited for this fight in terms of it was booked way back in December. A lot of people were talking about it at that point, and it's pretty much stuck around that pick'em line, and it hasn't really budged from that. Like we've seen a little bit of money coming in on Zalgas, and then it comes back in on Amir, and then it goes back the other way, and it seems like the love is starting to come in on Zhumagulov, but I'm still sticking with my guns in terms of picking Amir Albazi here. I like his grappling style. I like his approach in terms of kind of just sticking with the wrestling, trying to go for submissions. And one thing that we have seen from Zalgas in the past is that he kind of does give up takedowns in earlier rounds. Luckily for him, the fights that he has against these predominantly wrestlers are 5 rounds. So he's able to go out there in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds and kind of just piece these guys up and kind of nullify the takedowns that are coming their way. Now he has great names on his record, right? You got Ali Bagotinov, you got Tagir Ulanbekov, and all 4 of us know that fight against Ulanbekov is definitely a robbery there. That fight did end up happening in Kazakhstan, and you guys can connect the dots there. But good win for him there. Eventually punches his ticket to the UFC and comes in against Julianna, who, in my opinion, very highly touted 125er. I think that guy is definitely has top 5, potential. Even Julianna got screwed in the Kai Kara France fight. So we're talking about just shady decisions all around in the 125-pound division. But with Zalgas, we're talking about a guy that has efficient striking, but doesn't really have much pop on his shots, which makes me kind of lean to the Amir Albazi side, who I think will be able to deal with the striking that's coming his way. And he should be able to get this fight down, maybe at least bang 2 rounds here and pull off a decision victory. So I'm going to be going with the Swede, Amir Albazi, to kind of grind his way to a victory and hopefully survive that third round. I think he'll be able to. Again, I don't think Zalgas has the most pop on his shots, but he is very efficient with his combinations. But I think Amir will survive it. So once again, I'll go with Amir Albazi to win this fight via decision.
Right on, Cody Saftic. Who you taking?
I guess it really comes down to Amir Albazi's gas tank. I mean, we've seen for the most part, he's been finishing a lot of his opponents early in the first round. The one time that he's been extended beyond that first round is kind of that Jose Torres fight where you see he does get tired the later the fight goes. Zalgas is a 5-round type fighter, not because he's got exceptionally good cardio, which he definitely does, but because he's a slow starter. He'll oftentimes give up those first couple rounds and then eventually start to pressure you later on. That's what screwed him in the Rolian Paiva fight, is that he just takes too long to get going. And by the 3rd round, I mean, I think it's all Zalgas. He's definitely giving a count on himself, but he's behind on the scorecards. That would be the tricky here thing against Albazi, because Albazi probably has a little bit of a speed advantage. He does have that wrestling, he does have the grappling, he does have decent striking as well. I mean, we all know him for submitting Malcolm Gordon, but I thought he looked really polished on the feet as well. Only 27 years old, definitely getting better, shows up in good shape. He's what you would definitely consider a live dog. The reason why I'm sticking with Zhumagulov instead, though, is he does have that bigger experience. Like, he's fought a who's who of like good guys in the regional scene. Before coming to the UFC, he had already defeated Tyson Nam. He'd already defeated Ali Bogatinov. We keep talking about the Ulamakov robber. Ulamakov's an undefeated prospect and looks to be an absolute stud. And if he was fighting Amir Albazi, I would surely pick him as well. But this is a good spot where Zhalgas has all that experience. Debuting as Rolian Paiva, it's kind of, who's Paiva? But as Locke said, and I agree with his assessment, Paiva's legit. He's got super heavy hands. He's got good cardio. He's got good takedown defense. He checks all the boxes. Zhalgas coming into the UFC, that's a tough debut. His sophomore outing should be a little bit better for him. And Abu Dhabi is a super hotbed for Kazakh fighters. A lot of people from Kazakhstan come there, they vacation, they bring their families, they go there for training. And I think that he's going to be really accustomed to the conditions. He'll go out there, hopefully get a little bit of a faster start. And if Albazi comes out hot in the first round, Zhalgas can hopefully match that. Even if he drops the first round, he needs to rally in the second or third, just like he did against Paiva, but hopefully get the decision. Now, we can all look at the fact that he's 0-1 in the UFC versus Albazi, who's 1-0 in the UFC. Albazi fought Malcolm Gordon, got the victory. That's all well and good. Zhalgas fought a guy who's got top 10, top 5 potential, let's say. But also, man, that was a close fight. I personally scored for Zhalgas. I did have him in that spot. But, I mean, if he even does the same thing there, he's got a live shot here. This is not a card where I'm certain on a whole lot of picks. I think that Albazi would be considered a live underdog. But it's not a whole lot of underdog money. It's not like they're giving you plus 170 or something. It's pretty much close enough to a pick 'em that I'd take Zhalgas. And to improve that price tag, because I want to get some plus money on some spots on this card, Zhalgas ain't finishing nothing. I mean, we've kind of seen it. It's kind of like the thing throughout his career. He'll grind you down. He'll hit you with big shots, but nothing really seems to have the stinging power. His submission game doesn't seem to be quite there. So if Zhalgas is going to win a fight, I would assume Zhalgas is going to win by decision. If Albazi is going to win this fight, again, I would assume Albazi would win by decision. So whatever side you're on, I think you take that fighter by decision and get some good plus money out of it.
Right on. Guru, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to be on the Albazi side, but I agree, man. I mean, this is a really close fight. I just feel like if when I'm looking at it, I think Albazi is going to be the bigger guy. And I think on the feet, he's going to be the one pressuring. So Zhalgas, he has that left hook that he really likes to counter with. That's kind of like his main thing that he uses. So if he could, pot shot Albazi, that's going to be his path to victory. But I feel like Albazi is going to be able to implement some grappling in the early rounds, maybe hit a takedown that first round. And then after that, all he has to do is win one of those next 2 rounds. And I think he could do it. I mean, I've seen on the feet, he throws really nice uppercuts and he throws a lot of volume. So I could see him even winning around, on the feet just on activity, because I do kind of feel like Zhalgas, he has that style where he likes to coast to victories. And Albazi seems like a guy that could maybe make him work and just kind of edge him out, even if it gets to the scorecard. So if you're picking out Albazi, I think you are probably hoping that he gets that first round submission, gets it out of there easy for you. But even if he doesn't, I still think that, he could do enough to get a decision. So I'm going to go with Albazi.
Right on. Yeah, Guru, man, you brought up some great points. I'm going to end up taking Albazi. I'm leaning more towards a decision. I do think he's live. I think he's possible to get an early finish here, but I do feel like this fight's going to play out very closely. Both guys, I think, have a similar skill set. Zhalgas can grapple. Albazi can grapple. But when I think about it, I do feel like Albazi's a little more dangerous guy. And I think he might be able to implement his game plan, get off a little bit quicker. I think he probably banks first and second round. And like Guru said, Zhalgas has a tendency to take his foot off the gas at times. But I do think he probably has the better gas tank over 3 rounds. Like I said, I think Albazi wins the first and second round. I'm leaning towards a decision, and I'm taking Albazi. Second fight of the night, we got Nick Lentz going up against Movsar Evloev. Cody, can you get us going?
Okay, so this is a spot that I'm really hoping this is not the apple pie shitter, but Movsar Evloev he's kind of become a darling to a lot of people so far in his UFC run 3-0, looks the part, he's undefeated, former M1 global champion at 135, and so far in the UFC, you see kind of improvements the whole way. His debut against Choi, he's like a minus 560 favorite. What do you get out of there? He goes out there, he out-grapples him and wins a decision. That's cool. Against Barbosa's training at ATT. He's a big, thick, strong dude. Got some decent wrestling, more so relies on his strength, but Evloev goes out there and he just shows, like, again, people always like to say there's levels to this. His wrestling is that level above Barbosa, but then he runs into Mike Grundy. And again, if you want to talk about there's levels to this, his wrestling's good, but it's not Mike Grundy's level of wrestling. The difference is that Mike Grundy's just a good wrestler. He doesn't really have that striking in his back pocket. He doesn't really have that refined game. So Evloev doesn't have to use his wrestling. In that spot, he gets taken down 6 times, scores no takedowns, but you see the improvements in his striking. And that's what I like about him. He's full-time at Tiger Muay Thai. He trains with Peter Yan, and you kind of do see glimpses of the striking getting better, but he just relies on the wrestling. Now, for the first time against Grundy, can't rely on the wrestling, is when you see the striking come out and it's like much improved. Grundy also got him in some nasty chokes, and this kid fought through the entire way through. So we know he's got okay submission defense. The wrestling's pretty good. The striking's pretty good. He's got all those variables. Nick Lentz is just a tough opponent because, one, he's got nearly 40 pro fights. He's been in there with a who's who. He's got 3 fights with Charles Oliveira. But Nick Lentz didn't look out of place at 155 pounds. Yeah, the win over Gray Maynard. I guess anybody really would have beaten Gray Maynard in that spot. So not worth talking about. But the Scott Holtzman fight, Holtzman's a top 20 guy at best, gatekeeper, not top talent. But Lentz looked awesome, At 155, this guy did not look out of place. And so for him back down at 145, coming off the Arnold Allen loss, which was competitive, he's that bigger guy. You've got Evloev's the 35er who competes at 45. It's okay size. Lentz is a 55er, competes at 45, and is huge for 45. This is a guy that struggled with the weight cuts, but he made the weight today. And honestly, I could see a world where wrestling's off the table. You got the former Minnesota University wrestler in Nick Lentz, a D1 guy. He's got decent striking. He's got a BJJ black belt. He's got a nasty guillotine choke. He's got all those veteran savvy tricks. He's a big body. He could have some decent success in the grappling, especially against the cage. Against Evloev, who is going to be a little bit undersized. He hasn't fought that level of competition. He's still got something to learn. He's just too big of a favorite, It's not that I'm disagreeing that that he should be the favorite. It's that kind of line where you're overlooking Nick Lentz. And Nick Lentz had a fight just booked a week ago in a spot that I thought that he was going to have a good opportunity to come in here and shine. And they rebook him against Movsar Evloev. It's a much tougher fight. Maybe that's what the line's indicating, that they think it's going to be a tougher fight for Lentz. But Lentz is one of these guys because he's seen it all already. Nothing's really going to phase him, He's fought the best guys in the world. And yes, a lot of them have blown right through him, but he's seen it at least, right? So the line should be a little bit closer. And if I got to improve this line myself, I need to chase that Movsar Evloev by decision, which is minus 145. Again, Lentz is super tough. You've seen Movsar Evloev. He's 3-0 in the UFC, all 3 wins by decision. Now he's taking on a bigger guy in Nick Lentz. He's taking on a fairly durable guy in Nick Lentz. His striking doesn't seem like he's got the power to knock Nick Lentz out. His grappling, he's not submitting Nick Lentz, I really don't think. If anything, he's going to do what Arnold Allen did to him. That's just out-hustle him over the course of 3 rounds and pick up that decision victory. So Movsar Evloev, too big of a favorite on the money line. Movsar Evloev by decision, trying to improve it the best I can.
Absolutely. Guru, who you taking?
Yeah, man, I agree with a lot of what Cody is saying in terms of just this is a tough test for Movsar Evloev because you have seen over the years, Nick Lentz has improved his striking as well. So I think that on the feet, both these guys are going to be able to land shots, even though I do think Evloev is going to have the speed advantage and probably, have the overall striking edge. I do think Lentz is going to, be fairly competitive in there. We saw him, be competitive in the striking with a guy like Arnold Allen, who, you could argue is a better striker than Evloev is. And you see Evloev struggle to take down guys like Barzola, who, fight at 135 now and, got taken down by Hanayaya pretty easily. And this fight, even talking about what Cody said, this fight's actually at 150 pounds. So it's not even at 145. So Nick Lentz got an extra 5 pounds even, to not cut. He's probably going to be even a little bit bigger in the cage. And Evloev's had I think 13 days training camp for this fight because it was obviously supposed to be Nick Lentz fighting last week. So he didn't really have a training camp either. So, there is some things that, are on the Nick Lentz side, but ultimately, with the age gap, Movsar being undefeated and the fact that I like the guy. I think he has an edge about him. I think that, he is really improving on the feet at Tiger Muay Thai. His grappling obviously is a really high level. So I just think he's going to be able to probably just take that decision, but I don't see him finishing Nick Lentz, and I don't really see him running through Nick Lentz either. I think it'll be a lot more competitive than, the line is, but I agree with Cody. I think, Evloev by decision, isn't really at a bad price tag.
Sounds good to me. Locke, who you got?
Yeah, I'm the biggest Movsar Evloev stan out there right now. I'm a huge fan of the guy. I think that he's very talented. He has top 5 potential, but I can even kind of reel it back here and be like, okay, this line's a little bit too crazy given, the veteran savvy of a guy like Nick Lentz. Very durable. The only guy that we've seen finish him as of late was Charles de Bronx Oliveira, who we know is dominating pretty much everybody at this point in time on a ridiculous run. So, it's nothing to really hang your head about if you're Nick Lentz, especially losing to, Charles Oliveira twice before that. What was the benefit of getting this third fight, right? I think people are just probably, I think Charles Oliveira was out there trying to chase another performance of the night bonus or even a fight of the night bonus because he was able to rack up a couple in their previous fights. But here against Nick Lentz, he still shows that he could be it could make it very difficult for some of these guys. Again, these guys brought up the Scott Holtzman fight, and I think that's a very prime example, especially with the fact that that fight only happened in February of 2019. So we're talking just less than 2 years ago. I still think he has it in the tank to go out and make it tough for these young up-and-comers. However, I think Movsar is already just too far ahead. Like, one thing a consistent theme that I talk about, especially when we're talking about these Russian guys, is that they have a very tough upbringing in the regional MMA scene compared to like some of these guys coming up on the Canadian scene or the LFA scene or even in the European scene or in the Cage Warrior scene. But I think Evloev is just continuously making improvements on a fight-to-fight basis, especially with his hands, especially with his striking. Like Guru was saying, he was putting in time over there at Tiger Muay Thai. There's even clips of him training with Piotr Yan, which is very nice to see as well if you're a Movsar Evloev backer. But now he's also spending time down there in ATT. And I think that's a very good thing for him as well, to see those different looks and get those types of different sparring partners and training in. So he's doing all the right things. The guy is going to be at least in title contention within the next 2 years, as long as he's able to go out there and remain active. And getting a name like Nick Lentz under his belt, it might not look like much to just a casual viewer, but guys like us understand that if you're able to go out there and just grind out and beat Nick Lentz decisively, it's a huge feather in your cap. So I think he's going to do exactly that. Cody's on the money in terms of chasing the decision prop here, because as much of an improvement as we've seen from Movsar, especially with the striking, it's hard to get a Nick Lentz out of there. Let's be honest. It's going to be very, very hard. We're not going to see like Charles do Bronx level Muay Thai from Movsar Evloev in this fight. It's not going to happen, but we are going to see solid hands, solid striking, solid kicks. And it's just going to put together for a solid decision victory here. So I'm going with Movsar. Let's get this fight under the belt and let's just keep the train rolling. Let's stay active. Let's get this guy into the top 10 by the end of this year. But I'm going with Movsar Evloev to win this fight via decision.
Yeah, Locke, you said you're high on Movsar Evloev. Man, so am I too. I like this guy a lot. He is going to have a little bit of a reach advantage here, but yeah, Nick Lentz, a big dude for this spot. And Guru, you mentioned this is a catch weight. That does, that adds a little bit of a twist here. At the same time, though, man, I think, Movsar Evloev is at a point where, we're seeing growth. He's 26 years old. He's going to have a decade. And I'm going to go ahead and call it an age advantage at this point to a 36-year-old Nick Lentz. To me, this feels like your classic passing of the torch moment. Nick Lentz, I think his better days are behind him. Movsar Evloev, the guy just on the up-and-coming trend. Locke, you think he's going to be in title contention soon? Man, it sure looks like it, dude. I like this kid a lot. I think he's got the skills to handle this fight. I definitely think it plays out closer than the implied odds, but who knows, man? Maybe Movsar goes out there and just, schools Nick Lentz at this point, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be fairly close. I think you guys nailed it with the Movsar by decision prop. That's how I'm looking at it. So we are cruising. We are up to an interesting one. Khalil Rountree going up against Marcin Prachnio. And Guru, I think you're up on this one.
Yeah, man, you said interesting. I mean, we have one guy in Khalil Rountree who, has talked about retirement, hasn't fought in a long time. And then Marcin Prachnio, I mean, he just can't seem to get out of the first round in the UFC. So you got two guys that really are super untrustworthy. But just when you look at it on paper, I mean, me personally, I even went back and watched a couple of Prachnio's fights in one championship. I mean, the guy just comes forward and he just throws like windmill shots with his hands completely down. I mean, if Rountree, can't knock this guy out in the first round, I would be surprised. I think this is kind of a gift for him from the UFC. I mean, I don't really – Prachnio obviously is a big guy. They're both 205ers. I've seen him, knock guys out with head kicks, things like that. So it's not like he has no chance to win, but I do feel like Rountree, I mean, we've seen him in there with way better strikers and he's knocked out better strikers. So I mean, I feel like this is a really good matchup for Rountree. It's not like Prachnio has cardio. He doesn't have a good wrestling game. So doesn't really have much of anything that poses, the usual threats to Rountree. So unless Khalil Rountree just comes out here and just looks really, really bad or just totally like drops the ball, I don't really see him losing this one. But, with Khalil Rountree, you can never be 100% certain, right? But I am going to go with Rountree first round knockout here.
Sounds good to me. Locke, who you taking?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see Khalil at that minus 320-ish range because you're not used to seeing that. You're not used to seeing Khalil be priced so heavily against anybody. But then when you go back and look at Prachnio, you're like, okay, knocked out by Sam Alvey. Probably one of the most comedic knockouts of all time because he gets rocked. Then he comes back just chin up in the air and gets rocked once again and gets dropped and finished. Then he goes out there and gets knocked out by Magomed Ankalaev. Okay, that one's fine because I truly believe Ankalaev, top 5 talent. Again, another guy that's probably going to be in title contention come this time next year. And then last time around against slow Mike Rodriguez, just could not get away from that clinch position and just gets elbowed to death. Absolutely brutal elbows there from Mike Rodriguez to put Pragnio out. So the jury's out. This guy has a horrible chin, and I'm going to bring up a little saying that I brought from the Propping You Up show last night. This guy's about to get crackneoed. I think that Khalil Rountree is going to go out there and just smash this guy. Now, we saw major improvements from Khalil Rountree in his fight against Eric Anders, where we saw the evolution of Tai Leo is what I like to call him, because he just comes out there, palms forward, does the traditional Muay Thai stance, starts lifting up that front leg, and you're just like, okay, what's this? You know, it almost gives Joe Rogan an orgasm over there, seeing this guy fight in the striking stance that he was bringing out there. And he made it, work to a T, go out there, batter that front leg of Eric Anders, and then eventually start to drop him time and time again. Couldn't get the finish, but man, Eric Anders is durable as hell. Just watch his fight against Thiago Santos. He took that fight on super short notice. He was taking everything that Santos was given to him, and he was still chugging along. I think he even made it to the 4th round. That was absolutely crazy. But if that was Marcin Pragnio standing on the other side of him, that guy's going down. That guy's going down in the first round, no doubt about it. Obviously, we saw the Tai Leo kind of the image kind of shatter in his next fight against Iwan Kutilaba, but we're not expecting Marcin Pragnio to come out here and throw on his singlet and try to take this guy down. You know what I mean? Like Iwan Kutilaba did exactly that to a T. And I find it funny that right after he finished Khalil Rountree, he's doing that wrestling warm-up where he's just like, I'm not sure if you guys remember what I'm talking about. He's doing his like little wrestling warm-up to try to just be like, this is what I was planning on doing the entire time. And it worked to a T. I don't expect to see Marcin Pragnio to do that. So the spot that I like here the most, the under 1.5. So I'm expecting Khalil to be the one to get the finish. I know it's a little bit chalky up in that minus 170 range, but even Khalil can get cracked. We've seen him rocked, dropped, and finished in the past before too. So that's what makes me hesitant about actually playing him. And I would rather take the chalk and play the under 1.5 here. So I do like Khalil. I do think he gets the finish, but I think people need to be a little bit wary about what they're actually getting with Khalil Rountree. And even though he's in that minus 300 range, it doesn't automatically mean that he's like the lock of the night. You know what I mean? He's not that guy in my opinion, but that under 1.5, that's a solid spot. That's a spot that I like. So I'll go with the under 1.5. And if you want me to pick a side, I'll go with Tai Leo to win by first round finish.
Love it. Cody Saftic, who you taking?
Yeah, the under 1.5 looks good because with Khalil Rountree, he's either going to come out looking like $1 million or he's going to come out looking like $350. Because it's the tale of two fighters, man. When he does what he's capable of, yeah, everyone's mentioned it. The win over Gokhan Saki alone, it's like people don't really grasp how big of a victory that is. You go out there and knock this man out and essentially retire him. Like he hasn't fought since. It was a nice victory. The losses are to Ion Kutilaba, but the losses are to Johnny Walker. The losses are the guys that are credible in the division, right? Maybe you can't hold that against him too much. The fight with Eric Anders, again, he drops him 4 times in the fight and gives him all types of savage beating. If he shows up and he's on point, the man's scary, dangerous. He's going to knock out Pragnio in the first round. Certainly that under 1.5. If the man shows up out of shape and isn't mentally in it, he gets finished in that under 1.5. Now, him straight up is like he's in the 300 range, whereas the under 1.5 is only minus 180. So I think it was minus 160. It seems like people are wising up to it. But what I'm saying is it's a much better price, and you're kind of covering yourself both sides. If you're a Khalil Rountree supporter, this guy's not going to take more than 7.5 minutes to take out Marcin Pragnio. Let's be real. Pragnio's 0-3 in the UFC. He's been knocked out all 3 times. We were laughing about Vinicius Moreira last week. Well, you know what? You're 0-3 in the UFC. You're getting Bear Jew choked him out, but Paul Craig had put a beating on him beforehand. And then you hear Felder make the comment. He's just like, man, you can't play punchy kicky. And like what he's saying, it's a nice assessment of like, you're not a fighter. You can't take the shot. Pragnio's a traditional martial artist. I mean, that's what he was doing. He was like Kyokushin karate background. Comes to ONE FC, and like Guru mentioned, I watched all of his ONE FC tape. He's wild. He's reckless. He tries to go these straight shots to the body. His head's way up in the air. Coming to the UFC, does the same thing. He berserk rages right into Sam Alvey and gets dropped, and then berserk rages right back into Sam Alvey and gets KO'd. The Ankalaev fight, you give him a pass. But the Mike Rodriguez fight's the same thing. It's like eventually these more technical strikers are going to hit him. When they do hit him, because this is punchy kicky, you're going to get punchied. You're going to get kicky. When they hit him, he just can't seem to take it. And that's a bad thing to be in there with a guy like Khalil Rountree, the Warhorse, because it's all he's got is power. Power doesn't really translate to the later rounds. Outside of the Eric Anders fight, I thought he looked good for 15 full minutes. But since then, he's taken a full year off, 15 months. He's announced a retirement. He was linked to a heavyweight fight against Greg Hardy. kibosh that. If you look at it like his Instagram and stuff, he doesn't appear to be in great shape, let's say 4 or 5 weeks ago. Then he comes on the scale today. He misses weight, 206.5, goes back and cuts the 0.5, comes back. Like, this has got all the makings that, like, again, could he be your apple pie shitter? If you told me Khalil Rountree shit in my apple pie, I would not be shocked in the slightest bit. Because, again, it's a flip of a coin. If it lands heads, this guy's going to take your head off. If it lands tails, you're going to kick his tail, I guess, because like it's very volatile. Now, they've given him a perfect matchup here. I think he goes out there. I think he rolls. It's that when you see the price tag 3-1, maybe that's a guy you consider, oh, he's very safe. I'll put him on all my parlays. It is striker versus striker. It's two guys that have knocked guys out. It's two guys that have been knocked out. It's two guys that have, I can't say one's looked good and looked bad, whereas Prachnio has just looked bad. And so for that reason, yeah, we've got to end up on Rountree. But this is not sweet grappler against suspect striker. This is two guys that match up fairly similar. And for that reason, they're both playing punchy kicky. They're both going to take a little bit of damage. Hopefully Rountree just gives the bigger shots and withstands anything that Prachnio throws his way.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those fights where it's like, the number, to me, a minus 325, or he might even be beyond that at this point, Khalil Rountree, just like, that's like eye-popping crazy, because he is just a very inconsistent dude. And now I get it, right? Prachnio, he just can't take a punch, like you said, Cody, Vinicius Moreira last week. It feels to be the same situation, except I felt like Vinicius actually had a shot at possibly finishing the fight. I mean, I guess Prachnio could take out Khalil Rountree. We've seen him fold, but I'm going to take Khalil Rountree. Absolutely not going to have anything to do with him betting wise, but yeah, it just screams under, right? I see a lot of people taking that Khalil Rountree KO TKO prop round 1. I feel like that's a little over aggressive. I don't even think you're really getting the best value on that. For me, I'm going to get that extra round. I'm going to get that extra half round involved. Give me the under 1.5. I feel like even if Khalil or even Prachnio isn't out of there by that first round, I think somebody falls over by halfway through that second round. I'm all about the under on this one. So that takes us up to, oh boy, the big time banger, Sara McMann getting in there with Julianna Pena. I think we're back to lock on this one.
Yeah, they wanted to get us all riled up with Prachnio and Rountree, and then they want to slow things down a little bit over here with McMann and Pena. And yeah, this one's a tough one to call because I'm very much siding on the Sara McMann side, but when you see that 40-year-old mark beside her name, it gets you a little bit hesitant, right? And then not to mention when she goes out there and she's not able to be as dominant as she was against a girl like Lena Landsberg, where in a fight she only needed 3 takedowns and was able to accumulate over 13 and a half minutes of control time. It's going to take a little bit more than 3 takedowns here against Julianna Pena, as I believe she will be able to get back to her feet every now and then. That's when you start to question the cardio. And that's where we've seen her issues come up in the past, where girls like Ketlin Vieira, obviously she's a solid opponent, so nothing to hang your head about there too. But then losing to Marina, probably the only woman that's older than Sara McMann in this division, right? So to go out there and get choked out by her, not a good look on your record. Then you got Julianna Pena, who, it's decent jiu-jitsu. I'm not as impressed as I'd say in terms of what she does off of her back. I think she's much better on top. Obviously, most jiu-jitsu artists are probably better off on the top, but she's just not what you would expect for somebody to be off their back. But I like the strength that Sara McMann brings to the cage. I like her takedown. Obviously, we know her Olympic-style wrestling and the background that she brings to the cage. But I think she just started a little bit too late. I think if we got her maybe 10 or 15 years earlier, we probably would have got a girl that was an absolute badass, probably even a champion, because she would have had the amount of time to go out there and round out her striking game. And that's something that's really not come to really like fruition here for her in the UFC. With Julianna Pena, though, like the striking difference isn't massive. So luckily for her, she doesn't have to worry about Ketlin Vieira going out there and just absolutely mauling her face. But I think that we'll see McMann complete the takedowns time and time again. I'm keeping my money away from this fight, though. It can go absolutely either way. Either Sara McMann starts to gas out earlier or later, and we see Pena kind of just take over, maybe get a 10-8 if McMahon's gas tank is absolutely shot. But again, I'm not willing to risk my hard-earned money on either one of these women, especially with Julianna Pena. To go out there and get choked up by Jermaine Durandamy in your last fight. Like, you want to talk about somebody who we're going to talk about later in this fight, Andrew Sanchez, who goes out there and knocks out his opponent in the first round. I'd say that and Jermaine Durandamy winning via decision are probably the craziest results you're ever going to get in an MMA fight. So, that one was weird. I'll go with McMann just because you're going to put a gun to my head and force a pick out of me. But I'm not confident at all here. So I'll go with McMann by decision, but don't take my word for it at all here.
Sounds good to me, man. I think you're spot on with it. Cody Saftic, who you got?
Yeah, this is a greasy fight, man. And with Julianna Pena, like, I don't want to back her, and I think I'm going to make a dog play on here. Well, I'm going to consider the dog play on here. But it's basically like, where is she going to win this fight, right? Okay, is she going to out-wrestle Sara McMann? No chance, right? You got Sara McMann, the former Olympic silver medalist. We know all that. But beyond that, it's like Julianna Pena's wrestling since coming back from having the baby, coming back to the UFC, it doesn't look very good, man. Nico Montano is half her size and was taking her down. And the fight with Jermaine Durandamy, she couldn't take down GDR, the credible kickboxer. So I now have it tough to believe that she's going to go out there and get some takedowns. So it's like, okay, you're a better striker than Sara McMann, surely, and she is. But it's like, is she a good striker? Like, I don't know. No, I don't think so. Like, where is she going to be able to TKO Sara McMann standing? Is Sara McMann not just going to be able to take her down at will? And so this is where, and I'm going to take Pena here, but it really feels to me where I got screwed last week on Tyson Nam. The expectancy here is that Tyson Nam is probably going to lose the majority of this fight to Matt Schnell till he lands that shot, right? With Sara McMann, this is somebody that against Ketlin Vieira is looking good early. As soon as you start to get into those second rounds, as soon as you start to get a little bit deeper, she gives up the submission. The Marion Renault fight, it happens the exact same way. She quintessentially retires right then, 2017. You did not see her. She appeared 2 years later at age 39, beat Lena Landsberg, and has now proceeded to take another year plus off. So now she returns again to the ring. She's 40 years old. She's now a wrestling coach at Team Alpha Male. She helps some of the younger fighters there, the women's team and this and that. So it's like there's other things for her to be doing, but she's a natural competitor. She's competed her entire life. She wants to fight. Perfect. I just got this gut feeling that, again, if someone can test her a little bit, Lena did not test her at all. As Locke mentioned, it's 13 minutes of top control. Like, she can't get up. And so she doesn't attempt to really get up. She just kind of accepts the positions. It's a good way for Sara McMann to not take any damage, not get tested, and get a victory. But coming back against Julianna Pena, like, at the very least, she's going to test you. No one's ever really just gone out there and blown right through Julianna Pena. Even Valentina Shevchenko was having trouble through the first round and a half versus her. Julianna's strong. She's aggressive. And maybe that's the path of victory. Just be strong, be aggressive, get in Sara McMahon's face, maybe lose the first round, maybe be losing the second round, but turn the tides and pull one over on her. I think she's got a little bit of a better submission game. Definitely doesn't have the wrestling credentials or the wrestling chops to hang with McMann. And again, Nico Montano was able to take down Julianna Pena. So I would truly believe that first round starts, Sara McMann goes out there. She's not interested in striking for a whole lot. She's going to take down Julianna Pena. Does Julianna Pena have some great get-up game? Not particularly, but I know I'm giving up that first round. So instead of betting plus 110 Julianna Pena right now, I'm going to bet it live after the first round, given that she'll probably lose it. And then beyond that, I think that she's just got to push a pace. The last thing I want to mention is that when you talk about both of them had layoffs, right? McMann takes a layoff between 37 to 39, takes one fight, another year-long layoff. I'm expecting there to be some rust. I'm expecting the cardio not to be quite there. And this is a girl that doesn't take damage very well. I mean, she's famous for Ronda Rousey dropping her with a knee to the body, and that's Ronda Rousey and her striking. She does, when she gets hit, that's when she gives up submissions. That's when she gives up, oh, it looks like she's tired. You got to make this a rough and ugly fight, but it's hard to do that when you're on your back. So I need Pena to get back up. I need Pena's cardio to check out. I need Pena to go. But as I mentioned, those are the layoffs for McMann. The layoffs for Pena, she came back 2-year-long layoff and fought Nico Montano, took a year-long layoff again. But the fact is she fought JDR only 4 months ago. So I'm hoping that you come out of that. It's 3-ish hard rounds. You did get choked out in the third. It's a bad way to lose a fight, but get right back in camp, get right back in it, keep your skills sharp. And then if she won't have as much ring rush, you got to get a quick start out there against McMann. Don't lose the first 2 rounds. You can win the third against her. You don't want to be 0-2 going into that third. So I'm going to take that shot on Pena. I also seen Pena by submission plus 650. Kind of seen a little too much to look away from, just in the nature that, again, you don't have to TKO McMann. You can be hitting her and she'll all of a sudden give you that submission. Hoping for the best, man. Again, I think it's a close fight. I think it's a greasy fight. I think the fight could go either way. You'd be smart to pass on it, but I'm going to classify this one as a dog or pass. And for that reason, I'll take the dog, Julianna Pena.
Right on, Guru. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sara McMann in this one. And I just feel like the grappling, the wrestling is just going to be the tail of the fight. I mean, you look at Julianna Pena's like grappling stats. I mean, she has 28% takedown defense. And then when you go and watch some of her fights, like when she's fighting Kat Zingano, man, I mean, Kat Zingano in the clinch is ragdolling Julianna Pena, taking her down whenever she wanted to. And she just made a lot of really silly mistakes on top where she just let Julianna Pena scramble, get on top, and or, just get back up to her feet, where I feel like McMann, I mean, she does, give up submissions and she doesn't take damage well, like Cody was saying. But I mean, if you look at the girls that finish her on the ground, I mean, Marion Renault, she has a lot of finishes on the ground, like 3 or 4 in the UFC. She triangled Jessica Andrade. She got finished, I think, by Amanda Nunes and by Ronda Rousey and Ketlin Vieira, where I think all those girls are, much better finishers than Julianna Pena. Pena hasn't gotten a submission since she was on Ultimate Fighter, so she's never gotten a submission in the UFC. In terms of the striking, I mean, I feel like Pena maybe is a little bit better technically, but I definitely feel like Sara McMann hits harder and she's the better athlete. So I feel like on the feet, I mean, it could play out pretty close. I don't feel like Pena is going to be able to just run away with it striking. So I just feel like the only way that she could win is if she maybe hits like an armbar off her back type thing, or if Sara McMann really gets tired. But just from what I see, I just feel like Sara McMann's going to be able to hit the takedowns and control position. I don't think that Pena is going to have as much success off of her back creating scrambles than like she did against Kat Zingano. So I just feel like Sarah's going to, stay heavy in half guard, maybe look for a couple arm triangles, land some short shots, and win a decision. So I'm going to go with McMann here. But, like you guys said, the age and everything like that, it is, something that you have to look at. But I just feel like McMann, has a big advantage in the wrestling here.
Yeah, I mean, you guys nailed it, right? Like, I'm going to end up taking Sara McMann, but I want to say this. Had this fight happened, say, like 3 years ago, this would have been Julianna Pena pick for me, and it would have been fairly confident. I probably would have bet it. But, since Julianna Pena's come off that layoff, had that child, I just feel like she's not the same fighter. She just doesn't seem to have, like, that mean streak. There's just something different about her, and I just don't like it. Whereas Sara McMann, I felt like a few years ago, I felt like I kind of saw some quit jobs, She got put in some tricky spots, just didn't seem to have the heart. I felt like that's kind of been her hang up her whole career. It's just, the want, the heart, she gets in there and the other fighter just wants it more, even though she might even be the more skilled fighter. I think she even talked about that in media stuff, how she never really wanted to be the champion, like almost kind of played it off like, she wanted Ronda to win the fight when they fought for the title and all that stuff. She's 41 years old, though, now. I do feel like Sara McMann's going to win. I honestly pondered earlier this week betting Sara McMann, but then I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to let myself bet on a 41-year-old woman here. I feel like I can't bet on Julianna Pena anymore. Too inconsistent. I'm going to let this one easily and happily pass right by me, but the pick is Sara McMann. Okay, we're rolling. Brad Tavares, Antonio Carlos Jr., and Cody Saftic. I think you're up.
I'm having trouble getting a good read on this, to be honest with you. I mean, with Brad Tavares, Brad Tavares in general, I mean, he doesn't got much stopping power. He doesn't have the submission ability. He's just one of those guys that's in there and he goes rounds with you, right? Sometimes he gives an okay count of himself, sometimes not so much. He's been in some spots he should have won and he lost, and vice versa. Him fighting Israel Adesanya, that's going to be a feather in the cap for as long as he lives, and he loses the fight. But being able to go out there and get rounds and certainly not get blown right through against what ended up being, a fantastic champion and one of the best strikers in divisional history, it shows you the level of striking Brad Tavares is on. I mean, this guy's trained by Ray Sefo in Las Vegas. Man, he good chin on him. So then to fight Edmund Shabazy and to get folded up by a head kick, it's like, it's the tale of two things. Like it erases all of that. Is he a good striker? This 21-year-old kid just hoofed him one lopside the head. And Brad's quietly now 33 years old. He doesn't really have any significant victories. He's been in the UFC for a decade. He's just kind of that guy that maintains a roster spot. He's never really done anything overly impressive. And Antonio Carlos Jr., he does stuff impressive all the time. By all the time, I mean for the first 5 minutes of the majority of his fights. Like, there's always little glimpses of him. He just can't put it together. I mean, so laughable the Daniel Kelly loss. Where it's like, my God, man, what is going on here? But yeah, you know what? It's a long time ago. The guy was green and he clearly had cardio issues. And even though he takes Kelly down the first round and he has his way in the first, and he almost submits him in the first, he's got cardio problems. It's since then he's done nothing to shore that up. I mean, the Ian Heinisch fight, same thing. In the first round, he looks good. The second and the third round, he starts to get tired. The Uriah Hall fight, it's kind of reversed. In the third round, he's able to take Hall's back, but can't do nothing with it. But you just see where his striking, he's got a 79-inch reach. That would imply that, at least he's going to land some shots. His striking is just not refined. He's got a big, long jab on him. It's easy to counter. The better strikers are going to chip him away all day long. He needs to get this fight to the ground. He's so big. He's so strong. He's usually able to get a body lock takedown. He's usually able to get that back. But maybe because he is so big and strong that's to his detriment. Like that's what's costing him energy. With Brad Tavares, I mean, Locke and I spoke about this last night. He's never technically been submitted as a professional. He was submitted on the Ultimate Fighter by Court McGee way back in the day, but that's like 11 years ago, man. And the guy's maintained a roster spot since then. So grappling doesn't seem to be a huge issue, but he's never fought a really top-level grappler. And striking, could be an issue. He fought a really high-level striker in Adesanya, but then he loses to Shahbazyan. Like, I don't know where his problem is. I just don't know where he puts it together. The way Brad Tavares wins this fight is Antonio Carlos Jr. loses this fight. It would be Antonio Carlos Jr. having a good first round, gassing himself out and losing. He'd have to blow it for himself because I don't know that Brad's got the skills to just go out there and from start to finish win. I would give him the striking advantage, no doubt about that. But it's up to Carlos Jr. to force the issue and try to take him down. And there's another issue with tape studying Brad Tavares. Has he fought these high-level jiu-jitsu guys? No. Has he fought these high-level wrestlers? Instead of Yoel Romero? No. And that was a long time ago. I don't know, like, is it going to be easy for ACJ to take him down? So again, like I would like to classify this one as a dog or pass. I think it's closer to a 50-50 fight. Both guys could have their merit. Both guys could get the win. ACJ certainly looks better. He's only 31 years old. I would hope that he's taken off that year-plus layoff to improve those skills. But then that just draws up another question. Geez, the guy's been off for 14, 15 months. He had bad cardio to begin with. Now you're throwing him on a trip all the way to the Middle East, time zone change, hasn't fought in 15 months. What's going to happen here? Chances are, and history has certainly shown us this, that he'll gas out after the first round. And Brad's durable enough that he'll probably survive the first round. So again, you can see like the ebbs and flow, like both guys got merit. I would say just hit a straight pass. Again, maybe I classify this one as a dog or pass, but I can't get a good beat on it. I'm probably just going to hit a straight pass.
Sounds right to me, man. Guru, who do you got?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough fight to call. Like Cody was saying, it's kind of like a put up or shut up fight for both guys, right? Because, neither of them have fought in over a year. They're both coming off back-to-back losses. So you could easily see the loser of this fight getting cut from the UFC. And when you see Brad Tavares, I mean, he's been in the UFC for a long time, man. I mean, over 10 years at this point. He's, had a decent career where he's kind of like Cody said, he's never been like someone that's fought for the title, but he's, just been able to hang around, get some, good wins. And, he beat a couple guys. Like he did beat Thales Leites when Leites was a little bit older in his career and showed, some pretty good takedown defense in that one. But you do see him get taken down, against Yoel Romero like 5 or 6 times, which, I mean, that's not something you could really, blame him too hard for. But I've also seen him, get taken down a few times by Elias Theodorou, where I do feel like if Carlos Jr. can get in the clinch, he probably will be the more physical guy and be able to hit the takedowns when he's fresh. But like, they're saying he definitely has cardio issues. So when he gets tired, if he can't hit the takedowns, Brad could, use the jab, use his leg kicks and kind of pot shot, his way to victory. But Brad, he doesn't really use a lot of movement. He's more of a flat-footed guy. He stands in front of you. So I feel like he doesn't have the power either to keep Antonio Carlos Jr. off of him. So Antonio Carlos Jr. probably is going to be able to get on the body lock. And I don't really know truly how good Brad Tavares' grappling is. It's hard to say in terms of his actual jiu-jitsu if Carlos Jr. could take his back or get on top of him, if if he's going to be able to submit him real quick, or if Tavares is going to show some good submission defense. So, I feel like that's kind of the tail of the fight, but I'm going to go with Shoeface. I mean, I think that, at least in his last fight with Uriah Hall, he arguably won. And I feel like Uriah is a guy that's probably, a little bit harder to get in on than Brad Tavares will be. He was able to win the 3rd round of that fight after taking some damage. So maybe his cardio will look like that in this fight too. And yeah, I'm going to go with Shoeface, but it's not a super confident one here.
I feel you there. Locke, who you taking?
Yeah, I think Brad Tavares is probably just praising the gods right now that he doesn't have to go out there and face a young up-and-comer. First and foremost, Israel Adesanya 2 fights ago. Again, like Cody says, makes a good count of himself in terms of lasting the full 5 rounds, and then goes out there and fights a very, then hot prospect, Edmund Shahbazyan, and he gets absolutely decapitated by a head kick. But the one thing that we were trying to kind of dissect and trying to figure out about Brad Tavares is how he does when he's going up against guys that want to take him down and try to implement that grappling game. So the 3 names that really kind of stand out to me as of late for him were Cal Magalhaes, where Magalhaes went 1 of 7 on takedowns, Elias Theodorou, 3 of 7 on takedowns. And then most recently, Thales Leites was 36 at the time, mind you, and went 0 of 7 on takedowns. Now let's look at Antonio Carlos Jr. in terms of his takedown ability. He's landed a takedown in at least one takedown in every single one of his fights in the UFC, except his fight against Kevin Casey, where that got stopped within 11 seconds. Sometimes he only needs one takedown to get that submission, just like he was able to do in the Jack Marshman fight and obviously the Tim Boetsch fight. Now, I get Brad Tavares is a far cry from Tim Boetsch and Jack Marshman, but I feel like he's starting to distance himself from those cardio issues a little bit. Obviously, the Daniel Kelly fight, not a good look at all. I understand that for sure. But the Ian Heinisch fight, I truly believe that Ian Heinisch is a solid guy, decent cardio, does well in scrambling situations, so that I don't think that Carlos Jr. was going to be able to keep up with that pace later in the fights. We saw Carlos Jr. land the 3 takedowns early in that fight and then start to wear down a little bit. Again, I think that Heinisch is just a little bit more of an energizer bunny and a little bit harder for Carlos Jr. to get a read on him. And then the Uriah Hall fight, that kind of showed me a lot more from Carlos. You know what I mean? Because Uriah Hall, we know what his stand-up is like. We know what his jab is like. And his jab alone pretty much won him that first round, even though pretty much the majority of that round, Carlos Jr. had his back as well. You know what I mean? But his nose was just leaking all over the place because Uriah Hall was able to do a really good job in terms of sticking that jab out there, doing a ton of damage. But that was a very closely contested fight. Like if you go over to MMA decisions, like the media scores are split down the middle. You got the fan scoring split down the middle. That first round is truly what it comes down to, where you have 52% of fans giving it to Uriah Hall, 44% of fans giving it to Carlos Jr., and then 4% of fans giving it a draw. Very, very close round where you're trying to figure out between damage, a little bit of damage, and a ton of control. But the little bit of damage that Uriah Hall was able to accrue in that first round made it so aesthetically pleasing for the judges to be like, okay, this guy probably deserved that round. But then what did we see? Like he didn't have as much success in that second round, talking about ACJ, but in that third round, he's still able to go out there, snatch onto the back of Uriah Hall and ride out that back position for the entirety of it. And it's not like Uriah Hall was just laying there and letting him try to, just take that position. He was trying to get out of that position. He was doing a good job in terms of, having his 2-on-1 and making sure that there was no rear naked choke available for him there. But I think that Brad Tavares does not bring the type of striking game that we're going to see from a Uriah Hall. I don't think his shots are as damaging as Uriah Hall, and I feel like he's going to have a harder time dealing with the forward pressure of ACJ and getting a hold or getting him off of him. Like we know ACJ has a very tight grip, a very tight squeeze. So once he gets his body lock around you, more than likely you're going to be taking a little stumble onto the ground, and then you'll probably get onto your back and then start to control you from there. And, the layoff is not that good either for Brad Tavares, especially to come into a fight like this where he has to kind of really, he's going to be bullied. Believe it, like for sure, he's going to be bullied. Get dragged to the ground, and I feel like we'll see Carlos Jr. successful enough with it over that 3-round period, or could potentially pull off a submission. Now, I might be overrating Brad Tavares' submission game a little bit. Last time we saw him submitted over 11 years ago on The Ultimate Fighter, so not officially a submission loss on his record. It was an exhibition fight. He did get guillotine choked by Court McGee. But again, over 11 years ago, you got to take into account that he probably made some improvements in that amount of time. But has he fought somebody to this level with jiu-jitsu in that amount of time? Personally, I don't think so. So I think he's going to have a lot of trouble in terms of dealing with that type of pace, that pressure, the grappling style of ACJ, of just getting pushed up against the cage, dragged to the ground, and then just getting controlled. I don't think he's going to get anything off. He might get a couple punches off, but I don't think it's going to get to the effect and the level of damage that Uriah Hall was able to kind of implement on him there. So I'm going with the ACJ side. There's a reason, in my opinion, we saw the line move from that plus 135 down to the plus 105. There's a lot of love on ACJ. I'm one of those guys that loves him year two, and I'm definitely down to take that dog price. So I'm going with ACJ. Could see a possible sub, but I'll stick it on the safe side. I'm going to go with the decision here.
Right on. Cody, do you want to throw something in there?
Yeah, the last thing I want to mention, just he brought up, it's possible that Brad Tavares made those improvements. The last thing I just want to, this is super interesting, right? He fights Israel Adesanya. It's an even money fight. People thought Brad Tavares, he was minus 115 on both sides, right? That fight's 2.5 years ago. After that fight, Israel Adesanya fought 6 times and fought great guys and became world champion. Brad Tavares took 2.5 years off, comes back and where were the improvements? Man, you just went hard fight decision with Israel Adesanya. You got all that time off. He comes back from that time off to get head kicked by a teenager. Where was the improvements there? So yeah, no, I'm thinking the same thing. And he takes all that time off again. You guys swayed me into it. You guys swayed me, but I don't know that anybody's actually confident on betting ACJ. But he is. That's the rightful pick. Okay.
That's why we do these Friday shows. We kind of talk each other into sides that we're just like leaning on the fence. But
it's a bad card to bet, but we got to find some spots.
Tough card for sure.
Right.
Tough card.
Yeah, and hey, man, talking bad card to bet. This fight to me, I just have that feeling when I think about what when I see this fight playing out. Why does this fight feel like a split decision that everyone who's got money on the losing side is just going to blow up social media with the robbery? We see it all the time. Guys want to call robberies on close fights. I think this fight's going to play out close. Reducing it down to the simplest form, if Brad Tavares keeps the fight standing, I definitely lean Brad Tavares. If the fight's spent the majority on the mat, I lean ACJ, right? I mean, it shouldn't be that hard. But for me, I think the thing is, I think ACJ gets him down. I think Shoeface gets him down early. I do worry about the gas tank, though, man. I have a feeling that Brad Tavares is still going to be there late in that second round, still going to be there in that third round. We talked about, Tavares has been, he's been submitted, Ultimate Fighter, over a decade ago. But has he been in there with somebody like ACJ? No. So I see question marks all over, red flags everywhere, dude. Yet this is yet again another one of those fights that I'm going to happily chalk up a W in a pass on this one. So my pick is going to be Brad Tavares. I took Brad Tavares earlier in the week. Lowest level confidence pick I have. Like I said, I'm feeling a split here, but give me Brad Tavares. No action whatsoever, though. Okay, last prelim. Man, short notice. And this might be the time where we get into this little side discussion that we're just going to have to end up having, right? We got Arman Tsarukyan going up against Matt Frevola, a fight that was put together earlier today. And let's just open that can of worms right now. Ottman Azaitar. I don't even know if I can explain the story properly. For people who don't know, Ottman Azaitar was apparently involved in a Mission Impossible type fiasco earlier today, where a man with Ottman's help broke into essentially the fighter hotel. And feel free to correct me, guys, if I'm getting any details wrong here, right? This guy gets into the hotel, apparently scales outer balconies to get to the room of Ottman Azaitar to drop off a package, a bag, something we don't know that needed to get to Ottman Azaitar. Protocol was broken. The fight's off. Ottman Azaitar is cut. Locke, you seem to have an opinion on this. Can you hit me with something on this, man? We at least have to touch on this before we get into this fight.
It makes absolutely no sense. Like, what could have been in that bag that was so important that this guy needed to go James Bond on us and scale the balconies and break into the bubble and what was this guy thinking? Like, how did Ottman think he was going to get away with this? And the fact that they have footage of it is what I find the funniest. Like, I'm just thinking of like the guy that's doing the scaling of the balcony, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm getting away with this. I'm getting away with this." Little does he know that there's a camera watching him the entire goddamn time. And I'm pleading with the UFC. If anybody from the UFC is watching this, or anybody knows anybody that works for the UFC, please release that footage.
Please.
That would be comedy of the year easily. That would win awards for years. But yeah, I have no idea. Like, I've seen some speculations that people are saying that it's like a PED stuff, like they're trying to get like fake urine samples in for him or other shit that he wants to try to get away with. But I don't know what it could be, man, to risk your job. But another thing on the side note here is apparently those Azaitar brothers are pretty well off. They come from families that have money. So I don't think he's really fighting for money at this point in time. It's more so just to build up the name and all that type of stuff. So I don't think he really cares about losing his job in terms of the money aspect of it, but to try to make a name for yourself, and especially you're a hot prospect. You're going out there and deading 9 dudes out of your 13 victories in the first round, and you're gonna you're gonna risk it for this? Insane. I'm blown away, mystified. Absolutely.
Cody,
mystified.
what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, okay, so first and foremost, his brother Abu Azaitar is also signed to the UFC, and he was part of his entourage, right? And so Dana says his whole group of guys cut their wristbands off and gave it to another group of guys. So Abu would have been linked in with that, and surely he's going to get cut as well, right? You can't cut one of them and not cut the other. I'm sure it just hasn't come out yet. They're also both managed by Ali, so you'd think that there's at least a chance that Ottman maybe signs back. But here's the last thing, right? I've seen everybody speculate what was in the bag. Personally, I think it was the win. The win was in the bag. But no, he had to get himself disqualified from the contest.
I love it. I love it.
all things aside, okay, no one's mentioned this theory. There's a bunch of good theories, weight cutting equipment. I made the live stream joke. No one's mentioned this, right? Why didn't he just bring the fucking bag in himself? This is not this is not the Gestapo. They wouldn't have stopped him in the lobby and been like, "What's in your bag?" No. He could have quite literally taken the bag himself, walked right through the lobby. What's up? Gone to his fucking room, dropped the bag off. Like who knows what's in the bag? Well, why did he just bring it in himself? People keep saying like, "Oh, well, there was security, hotel security." Like, have you ever seen hotel security go through someone's bags? Anyways, I digress. I don't know why he went to that length. My honest gut instinct would have been rehydration equipment. Like he knew he was gonna cut weight. He knew that security was gonna just say fighters come from your room to the scale, and then you're probably told to go from the scale back to the room. So I'm gonna get Saeed to drop in the bag on the room, and when I go back to the hotel room, I'm gonna rehydrate. And I've known fighters that rehydrate. You're not supposed to. It's against, if USADA catches you, you get disqualified. But guys will still do if they have a bad weight cut. This guy's friends with the Prince of Morocco. He does have lots of money. He's undefeated. He's got a main card spot in a Conor McGregor pay-per-view, and yet he gets a guy to scale a wall. Like, whatever it was, it must have been important to him, right? But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. He thought it would be a bad weight cut, so he tried to get weight cutting equipment. But then that goes back to my theory. If it was weight cut equipment, why didn't he just walk it in himself? Right? That's the thing I'm not fully grasping.
I might have left the IV at home. I don't know, my man. Guru, what do you have to say about this?
Man, I don't know. I mean, like you guys said, it's like, I wonder why he didn't just bring the fucking bag in himself, dude. Like, it's like, who knows, man? I mean, it's like probably one of the most idiotic ways someone, got ejected from a fight the night before. I mean, what's another way you could even think even close? Like, I guess, who was it? Henan Barral? Like, even that's not even close to as bad, slipping and falling in the bathroom or something. But it's like this is like the craziest thing to get cut from a fight, cut from the UFC, especially like you guys are saying, he's 13-0. He's on the main card of a Conor McGregor fight. So it's like, this is going to be a huge opportunity for him. He just blew it. And then, Nasarat, didn't he just no-showed the weigh-ins, right? He just didn't even show up. So now they're doing Frevola versus Arman Tsarukyan. And it's like, fuck, like Frevola. I mean, I have to hate it to Frevola too, right? Apparently he got his win and show money guaranteed. Wow. And he just said, nah, fuck that. I still want to fight this 19th ranked guy that I'm going to be, plus 600 against. So, you got to give him props for what it even accept the fight after they guaranteed all that. But man, I mean, just looking at the fight, right, now that we have this new fight, Matt Frevola, Arman Tsarukyan, I mean, I do feel like the line is kind of crazy. I don't get why Tsarukyan is like, some books he's like at minus 900. I mean, to me, that's like legitimately insanity because Matt Frevola, I mean, he is a guy like his last 3 fights, he's been a big underdog in all 3 fights. He's unbeaten. One of them was a draw, but he has 2 wins too. And Arman, he missed weight too this fight. So Matt Frevola is a guy that looked in great shape at the weigh-ins. He's known to push a pace. And, it's not like Tsarukyan's some like really tenured guy. He's a young guy. He has only a few UFC fights. So this is the kind of guy recently, the Luis Peñas, the Jalen Turners, that Matt Frevola has been able to go in there, get in their face, land his punches, hit some takedowns, and win the fight. But, I mean, when you look at Tsarukyan, especially when you watch him, like his progression over fights, I feel like he's getting way better fight to fight, man. I mean, I thought that his boxing kind of was a deficiency of his, and then you see the Davi Ramos fight, and his boxing looks way better. His footwork looks way better. He's not getting goaded into that brawl that you'd think maybe someone that's inexperienced like him would be. So he's shown a lot of good things. I mean, he can mix it up, and I just feel like he is a level above Frevola in every area. But Frevola is one of these guys, man, that's tricky. He could punch. I mean, he has power. He, has decent submission game, decent grappling game, great cardio. So I think that, this is kind of one of these spots where, Frevola is a guy that could sneak up on you, especially, like I said, I mean, it's on 1 day notice. Arman missed weight. So who knows? I mean, if he thinks it's just a super easy fight, I mean, maybe Frevola could, make him really sweat it. But I do feel like, it's hard to pick Frevola as a straight up pick. I mean, just because I feel like Arman's a better athlete, better at everything. So I'm going to go with Arman. But I mean, I honestly feel like a bet on Frevola isn't the worst bet in the world.
Man, I'm so with you, Guru. Locke, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm big on our Arman Tsarukyan, right? But I actually did have a bet on Nasarat Haqparast going into this fight, so I was kind of bummed to see that fight fall apart. Even Ottman Azaitar, I had him round one plus 300 against a guy Matt Frevola, and that falls apart too. But we get another fight here where I think the odds are drastically skewed. I mean, I think that Cody touched on it yesterday on our show, where he thinks that a lot of people in the public think that Arman is like this second coming of Khabib, where he just has this takedown ability to take guys down over and over again. But if you go back and watch his fights, man, like most of his takedowns come early in that fight, like the Olivier Aubameyang fight, gets him down a couple times in that first round. And then in that third round, luckily for him, Olivier Aubameyang thinks he can put on his singlet and try to take Arman down, slips on a banana peel, ends up on his back, and we see Arman pretty much just ride out that top position for the entirety of that third round. So I do think he has a questionable gas tank. I think that could definitely be something that we haven't really seen yet, but I think that it's definitely an issue that could be there. And if there's anybody to bring it out of him, if Frevola's chin is truly not as compromised as I initially believed it was going into that fight against Ottman, he could really push him at that third round and really make him work for takedowns and then really eat some shots on the feet too. So when this fight initially got put together in the morning, I kind of just wrote it off and I'm like, Arman's probably going to win this fight. He's probably going to be minus 400 as well too, and I'm probably not going to touch him at that line. But now that it's getting to like that minus 750, minus 800, minus 900 range, you're like, okay, there's got to be a lot of, or at least some value on Matt Frevola here. And you know, you're not the craziest if you want to go out there and put like maybe a 0.2, 0.3 unit bet on Matt Frevola because you think you're getting some good value. And I absolutely think you would be getting some good value here. But again, I have this notion in my head that Matt Frevola has durability issues, and we didn't really see it come out in his fights against Jalen Turner and Luis Pena, who aren't really striking type of fighters. Whereas, we would have saw Ottman Azaitar go out there and put his hands on him. Arman Tsarukyan, mainly a grappler, but has decent hands, has a good head kick that he throws every now and then too. I feel like he might be the better technical striker here. But again, the longer that this fight goes, I think the liver of a dog will see Matt Frevola. So another possible live betting opportunity as well too. You go out there, let this first round play out. More than likely, Arman's going to go out there and at least land a takedown or two. He's going to be up on the judges' scorecards, and then you might even get a better line on Matt Frevola, possibly even like a plus 600, plus 700 at that point in time. And then you put in a little bit of money there, and you might be able to kind of exploit that live betting market. So I'll still go with Arman though. Like I still think that he grinds out 2 rounds. Maybe I am overblowing the potential cardio issues that I see from him in the third round. But I truly believe he is the better fighter here. But this fight is going to be way closer than the odds are suggesting. So I'll go with Arman. He's going to win this fight, but it's going to be a lot harder than a minus 900 indicates. So Arman by decision is going to be my pick.
Oh boy, I feel that. Cody Saftic, what do you think?
Yeah, honestly, Matt Frevola has proven to be a junkyard dog. He's got massive heart in him. He's always going to go after it. Guys have routinely made this thing where you write him off, right? He'd been knocked out by Polo Reyes before in a minute. Lando Venado was a draw, but he hurt him bad in the first round. But as soon as you give Matt Frevola, these big dog spots, he generally comes through. The Jalen Turner fight's an example. He perseveres, he gets through, he gets his takedowns, he grinds them up, he gets the victory. Same thing as in his next outing against Luis Pena, where it's, again, a close fight, but comes in as the underdog. He shows up with a lunchbox packed. He's willing to go 15 hard, and he goes for it. Him having that cardio, that's going to be key, because with Arman, maybe he doesn't have the greatest cardio. You got to be able to push him into the deeper waters to test it, to see where he's at. At least Matt Frevola should be able to do that. Then you compound that by Arman Tsarukyan missing weight, right? This guy comes in at 157 pounds, which means he misses weight effectively. First time, actually, 159. Bad miss. They say, you're going to go try again? Yeah, I'll try again. Cuts an extra 2 pounds. Now his body's saying, no mas, can't do it anymore. Coming at 157, you're giving up 20% of your purse. That's a sizable enough chunk for 1 pound. So you know that it wasn't the greatest weight cut. You see him and he's absolutely shredded. My God, this guy looks in great shape. But one has to imagine that if he did have a bad weight cut and he is going to get taken to the third round, it's going to be a problem. Now, with Matt Frevola, there's no denying that he's a good third-round fighter. But initially, when breaking down him versus Ottman Azaitar, it's not that, you know what, he is chinny. It's that anybody's chinny when they fight Ottman Azaitar, and I thought Ottman would land that kill shot. But Tsarukyan is not the level of power striker that Ottman Azaitar is. Ottman shows 9 first-round KOs, whereas Tsarukyan has certainly shown, especially in the UFC, if he's fighting a decent caliber opponent, it's mostly, win the decision, win some rounds, but not knock you out. So if he's not going to knock out Matt Frevola in the first round or two, Matt Frevola becomes, again, another live underdog. And then the last thing I want to mention, this is not some random dude off the streets that just agreed. This is not a Contender Series guy that just agreed. This guy's chief sparring partner, right? Chief training partner for both Aljamain Sterling and Muradov. He's seen power wrestling. He's seen slick striking. He's seen guys that can push a pace for 15 minutes. He's in the training room with some of the best guys in the world. Matt, Sara, Ray Longo train. Like, he's got a lot of good things going for him that at that price tag, like, why not? If you told me this was a even money fight, I would take Tsarukyan. I think that he's stronger. I think that his wrestling's good. One thing with Frevola is that he's been fighting all non-wrestlers, right? I mean, when you look at it, Polo Reyes is just a striker. Lando Venata did wrestle one semester of D1 wrestling, but not a wrestler. Let's be real here. And then Jalen Turner and Luis Pena couldn't wrestle at all. So he exposes them there. He's not Islam Makhachev, guys. He's not going to go out there and just absolutely grind out Tsarukyan. So now he's got to outstrike him. And Matt Frevola is not a great striker. Tsarukyan showed in the Davey Ramos fight that striking has improved a lot. He lands like 94 significant strikes, something he's been working on. He's still only 24 years old. You'd expect to see even more progression from the last fight. He is the rightful favorite, but is he an 8-1 favorite? Is he a 9-1 favorite? No. And we said earlier in the show, well, maybe I'll chase a prop to try to give me a better price. I couldn't tell you which way to go. If you were taking Tsarukyan, do you take Tsarukyan by submission? No. So then knockout, okay, Frevola has been knocked out, but when Tsarukyan's shown that big power, okay, but then take it by decision. I don't know, maybe he does chin check Frevola. Like, there's I don't know if it's decision. I don't know if it's inside the distance. I would say Tsarukyan, but at that price, no way. To put him on parlays, not happening. I guess if I tweet out the whole card, I'm not going to exclude his name, but honestly, yeah, it's just the price is way off. People are overlooking the steamroller Matt Frevola. So I don't know. I don't want no part of that.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Guru, when you said minus 900 Arman Tsarukyan, I'm like, dude, trying to keep my eyes from popping out of my head. Like, I understand Tsarukyan being the favorite, like a minus 300, a minus 400 Tsarukyan. Okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Minus 900 though, like, listen, guys, it is not my style. And I'm going to pick Tsarukyan, right? Okay, I'm just going to come out and say the pick is Tsarukyan. But I'm not the type of guy to ever put any type of wager against a pick. But my goodness, if I'm looking at a plus 500 Matt Frevola, I got to keep it real. That's going to be tough not to throw a unit on. You know what I'm saying? I still haven't made up my mind. Like I said, Tsarukyan's the pick. I do feel like skill for skill, he's probably the better guy. But even then, I say probably, like Matt Frevola as an underdog, I've cashed on 2 times. And my God, am I going to be kicking myself if this guy can somehow pull this off, win a 29-28 decision or something like that. And I don't put it past him, man. I really think he could do it. The one thing I always love to talk about Matt Frevola is the motor, the pace. This kid just goes. And in a 3-round fight against Arman Tsarukyan, man, I'm starting to get very tempted. No action as of yet. I mean, how in the world do you bet Tsarukyan? And I'm sure the props are all blown up as well at this point. You know what I mean? But man, I'm really pondering this one. The pick's Tsarukyan, but I'm feeling very tempted at Frevola if I can get him at just that absurd number. You know what I mean? So a very interesting matchup, man, and one that I feel like this is just crazy, man. Minus 900 Arman Tsarukyan just blows my mind. So that was our last fight on the prelims. This is kicking off the main card. We got Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas. Boy, after that, I'm not sure who's up, but I think it's Guru. Oh,
right, yeah, I'll take it.
Okay,
We got
my bad luck.
Yeah, it's all good. We got Amanda Ribas. We got her taking on Marina Rodriguez, and yeah, I mean, to me, this is obviously the UFC trying to set up the win for Ribas, because we've seen Marina Rodriguez struggle with grapplers throughout her whole UFC career, and Ribas obviously is someone that she's been rising up as a star in the UFC, and seems like she's super marketable and stuff like that. So they gave her Paige Van Zandt last time, and obviously this isn't Paige Van Zandt, so they are giving her, a significant step up in competition. But with Marina Rodriguez, I do think that, her Muay Thai is really good. She is a skillful striker, but I just don't see her, being able to keep that distance. I've seen certain fights, like she really likes to play in the clinch, like she has good elbows, good knees there, and she'll close the distance with her punches. She doesn't really fight at range super well, in my opinion, and that's why a lot of these girls that aren't really, super great athletes like Randa Marcos, Cynthia Calvillo are able to get the body lock so easily on her. And once they get on top, you do see Marina Rodriguez isn't, that great on the ground. I think that Ribas is going to be way better on the ground than Rodriguez. I think she could even potentially get a finish, submission, or a TKO, because you've seen, Marina Rodriguez give up dominant positions to girls, and she has been fighting, people that are really good grapplers, like Carla Esparza. You could argue is a better wrestler than Amanda is, but I just feel like in the clinch, Amanda Ribas's, judo throws have been really good. She's super good with her positional awareness on the ground, her scrambling ability. And I think that when she gets on top, she's just much better than someone like Carla Esparza is, much more dangerous. So I do feel like, Ribas is probably going to be the pick for me. But, you have seen, I guess, in the past, like when she fought Polyana Viana, she did get, hurt by some shots that didn't really look super powerful or technical. So, some people always are going to go back to that, especially now where she's facing, a girl that's a legit striker for the first time, you could argue. But I think that Marina's just not going to be able to stop the takedowns. And I think that once Ribas gets on top, she's going to be able to use that top pressure to kind of drain Marina, even if she can't finish her, and, just make the takedowns easier. And I think Ribas will win this fight pretty easily.
Sounds good to me. Locke, who you got?
Y'all know I'm a crazy man, right? Y'all know I'm a crazy man.
Uh-oh.
I like me some Marina Rodriguez here, and obviously the tape tells us here that obviously she struggles against women that are grappling heavy. Obviously with Amanda Ribas, her last couple of performances, let's just go over it. And I think I kind of overblew her fight with Randa Marcos last night. Okay, it's not really that big of a red flag that she wasn't able to go out there and finish Randa Marcos, but she did dominate that fight. I'll give that to her. Then she goes out there and outstrikes Mackenzie Dern. That's not a huge feather in your cap, considering that Mackenzie Dern is still working on her hands. And then last time around, she goes out there and just submits Paige Van Zandt, lives up to what a minus 700 should go out there and do. And that's, if Arman Tsarukyan deserves to be a minus 700, he should go out there and absolutely pulverize Matt Frevola in that first round. That's exactly what Amanda Ribas did in that fight against Paige Van Zandt. Now, I like that Guru brought up that Polyana Viana fight, and that was over 5, maybe closer to 6 years ago. And you truly see even her body language in that fight didn't really make it look like she was somebody that was truly comfortable in the striking range. Like, she just didn't look like she was comfortable throwing strikes. She just looked a little bit off. Her pacing seemed to be off. And then they were just engaging in this firefight where we see Polyana Viana land this insane bomb, just throwing it from the hip, no setup or anything like that, just throwing it out there, lands on the chin of Ribas. We see Ribas fall on her butt, and then she follows up with some strikes and loses via TKO there. Now we're talking about Polyana Viana, BJJ specialist, not Polyana Viana, Muay Thai specialist or anything like that. And that's what we're kind of getting here in Marina Rodriguez, as I believe that this is truly the first time we're going to see Ribas go up there against somebody that's a solid striker like Rodriguez. I like the kicks that she has. I like her clinch game as well, too. I think she throws some solid knees in the clinch. I think she could make it very difficult for Ribas to complete these takedowns if she starts to engage in the clinch and try to force her takedown that way. I think we'll see some elbows from Rodriguez. I think we'll see a lot of dirty boxing and even some dirty Muay Thai in there to try to make it more difficult for Ribas to truly drag this to the ground. Now, in the Carla Esparza fight with Rodriguez, we see her complete these like open mat, double leg takedowns and high crotch takedowns. And they're not really up against the cage or anything where she has to truly engage in these clinch situations where I think Marina Rodriguez actually has some success. And I kind of like to refer to Marina Rodriguez as like poor woman's Joanne Jacek. Like, she has that mean streak about her. She throws with veracity. She throws with just absolute just disdain for what you have to give to her. And that's why she's able to go out there and win these first 2 rounds against most women. But unfortunately, she's just not able to get over the hump of that 3rd round where they're able to get her down and kind of just ride out that top position. She only has 1 loss on her record, right? The Carla Esparza fight. And a lot of people, if you go back and score that fight too, very, very close fight. You could absolutely score that for Marina Rodriguez too, who may have given up some control time to Carla Esparza in those first couple rounds. But you see Carla Esparza, you got to kind of blame her as well too. She makes some very bad mistakes where she dives back for the heel hook, and then she just gives up the top position, and Marina Rodriguez absolutely goes apeshit on her face. And I think that's what probably kind of sways people towards the Marina Rodriguez side. So my angle is here, obviously, I know that Rodriguez is susceptible to getting taken down, but I think it's going to be a little bit harder for her to get her down than it was for Carla Esparza, who say what you want about her, especially after the way that she got pulverized by Joanne Jędrzejczyk, but we've seen her go out there and win time and time again with her wrestling acumen alone. And that's what she was able to do against Marina Rodriguez. Whereas Amanda Ribas, I think she's going to have to engage in those clinch situations, get that judo going. But in that amount of time, she's going to have to eat some strikes. And I wonder how she's truly going to react when she starts to get hit by a true striker like Marina Rodriguez. So that's where my side is. So I have a bet on Marina Rodriguez in that plus 280 range, as I truly believe that line is a little bit off. I think it should be closer to that plus 170, maybe even plus 150 range, because if the longer that this fight stays on the feet, it's just going to be an absolute bloodbath, in my opinion, for Amanda Ribas, who looks great on the feet in her last couple fights. But who is she going up against? And what does she have to really worry about that's coming back her way? That's kind of my angle here. So I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for her to truly drag this to the floor. And I think that, people are falling in love with the bell of the ball. And we saw what happened with the bell of the ball the last two events, right? We got Munir Lazzez, who gets absolutely dusted in that first round. And same with our guy, Joaquin Buckley. And you can absolutely make a point that Amanda Ribas is probably more talented than both of those guys put together at this point. But I think Marina Rodriguez is a live dog here, and I would not be surprised to see her go out there and even possibly finish Amanda Ribas. And that line, I dropped her on the Propping You Up show last night, plus 1350 for TKO by Marina Rodriguez. Come on, baby. Come on. It's absolutely there. I think it's worth a shot, but I do like Marina Rodriguez. Bring on the hate. Bring it on. You guys know I bask in this shit. But yeah, I'm going with Rodriguez. I'm going the contrarian side here. And I think Rodriguez possibly finishes this in the second round via TKO after overwhelming Amanda Ribas on the feet.
Love it. Cody Saftic, who you taking?
He's not wrong, but I think if she was going to win, it would probably be a decision just because it's women's MMA. You see that they both take a decent punch. If anything, I think this fight's going 15 minutes on either side. But the line is definitely big. I mean, we see this every single week. You have bright-looking UFC prospect who's been looking awesome in the UFC. Hasn't fought nobody, but has been looking awesome, versus savvy older veteran who's fought in tons of credible opponents and win some, lose some, and it's just like a foregone conclusion. What has Ribas done? Ribas has got a win coming off a win over Paige Van Zandt. Does that cause her to be a nearly 3-1 favorite? Is that the type of victory? What about the other ones? Well, she defeated Mackenzie Dern. That was a big one. Yeah, not really. The win over Emily Mitmar, the win over Ronda Marcos, who's proven to, be that top 10 at best level opponent. Those are her victories. She's looking very, very good. She's looking like she's improving. She's still only 27. She's certainly making improvements. She's at American Top Team. I like what I see from her. But still, we got to take in consideration that the level of competition to this point that she's been fighting has been low. Marina Rodriguez, meanwhile, she has a win over Tisha Torres. Marina Rodriguez, meanwhile, she went to a draw against Cynthia Calvillo. She is coming off a split decision loss in a really close, good fight against Carla Esparza, former world champion. And Carla Esparza's got the second best wrestling in the division next to Tatiana Suarez. And it's not like 1 and 2 is close, by the way. But she's the second best wrestler in the division. That's good wrestling. She's able to take Marina Rodriguez down. But when she can't take Marina Rodriguez down, you see she's long, she's lanky, she's aggressive, she is a good striker, she's got good output, she's got decent cardio. She poses a lot of problems. Amanda Ribas is not as good of a wrestler as Carla Esparza, right? So what is she going to do if she can't get this fight to the ground? I think she's got much better striking than Esparza, though, and that's where she should be able to be competent enough striking, strike long enough to get those takedowns. And Rodriguez, her gift is her curse. Her gift being that she's long, stand up, hits from the outside, good reach for the division, is the curse in that when she does get taken down, she's got very little ability to get back up. You see her actually win the first 2 rounds against Cynthia Calvillo. When Cynthia takes her down and gets on top of her, it's an absolute mauling 10-8 round. That's what leads to the draw. Ribas should be able to go do exactly that. Go out there, strike long enough to take her down. I did find it concerning, though, on both sides, that if I'm playing this fight out of my head, Ribas wins this fight on take the fight to the ground, out grapple her. However, both women come out. Ribas comes out and says, I'm very confident that I'll knock her out standing, and I want to stand with her. And Rodriguez comes out being like, her ground game's not that good. I'm going to shock you guys on the ground. It's like, well, what size is it going to be? I'd rather see Ribas not strike, to be honest with you. I'd rather see, again, she can strike for sure. It's a fight, but just don't make that the primary game plan. Don't go out there like Sarah Moras and just be like, I'll just pump this jab here. It's like, stop pumping the fucking jab and get the goddamn fight to the ground. No. Didn't want to do that. I would hope that Ribas goes out there with the game plan of, And that's the difference, right? Moras has gone from BC, spent some time in Vegas, kind of has done her own thing for a long time. Whereas Ribas has got ATT. She's got Matt Brown. She's got the Dean Thomas of the world. She's got great staff. Surely the game plan is, we've seen this girl, Rodriguez, win fights standing, lose fights on the ground. Get this girl to the ground. And if that's the case, I'm going to give Ribas the grappling advantage. I'm going to give her that slight wrestling advantage. It's not as good as the spars is, so that's a little bit troubling. But what I'm getting at, I'm going to pick Ribas. I'm going to chase that line by Ribas by decision. But Locke's not wrong. Like the line is wide out. It's not. It shouldn't be that big. And this is another live underdog spot for Marina Rodriguez has looked good coming in as underdogs before. Last thing is that I think was she a minus 200 favorite over Carla Esparza her last fight? Wasn't she a 2-1 favorite over her? I should check that real quick.
About right.
Anyways, how do you go from fighting a former world champion, having all this hype? Oh, damn, this girl's looking good. You see how good Tisha Torres is looking. You see how good Cynthia Calvillo looks when she makes weight. You see how good Carla Esparza is actually on a pretty decent run. She's looked very competitive against all of them. And flip side to that, we want to talk about Amanda Ribas. What has she done? She blew out Paige Van Zandt. Do you want to know how Paige Van Zandt versus Marina Rodriguez would go? Not very good. Tune into Paige Van Zandt's BKB debut and find out. Yeah, it's just like it's apples and oranges. So that therefore I'd say it is a live underdog. However, I'm gonna cower it out again and just take that favorite, take it by decision to get me a better than the 3-1 price.
Right on. Locke, you got something you want to add in there?
Yeah, Cody was absolutely right. Marina Rodriguez did come into that fight with Carla Esparza as a 2-1 favorite. And another thing I kind of want to address, a lot of people are going out there and being like, Ribas is very well-rounded. But again, she hasn't been challenging in that stand-up realm. And I think that's where we're going to see the flaws in her game. And I think Rodriguez could bring that out of her the longer this fight stays on the feet. But again, that's why we bet this sport. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But from what I've seen, I think that Rodriguez could give her a run for her money on the feet. All right.
Well, but that to that point, right? How do you go from being a 2-1 favorite over a former world champion? Okay, if you look at MMA decisions, if you rewatch the fight, it's split, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's got a different take on the fight. It's a close fight. Your close fight, former world champion came in as a 2-1 favorite. Okay, now you're coming in as a 3-1 underdog against a girl with a win over Paige Van Zandt in her last fight,
and who arguably doesn't have as good wrestling as the last woman.
Doesn't that seem like a fucking trap? Doesn't that seem like we're being baited into something?
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, we can move on to the next one. I'm talking myself into
We're reaching, Cody. We're reaching.
It could be, man. But dog's been coming through on all of these cards. And we're all, I'm Mr. Hindsight. Oh, well, Manir Laziz. I mean, Worley Alves won tough. He had fought Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman. Like, that's after the fact shit. Man, Alicia DiChirico got robbed against Kevin Holland. Alicia DiChirico's never been finished. That's after the fact shit. This one, I'm seeing it before the fact. Am I going to act on it? And I cowarded. My boy Locke didn't. So one of us is going to be right, and one of us is going to have the cold streak continue. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, the line's definitely wide, right? I mean, Amanda Ribas is going to be my pick, and it's like we know there's this clear path to victory for Amanda Ribas, but Cody, she's talking about, oh, I'm going to keep the fight standing and show you guys I'm the better striker. Dude, come on. I mean, I hate to say it. I've been one of these guys that's gone, against Rodriguez. And Cody, you talked about it. I am that guy at the TV yelling, shoot a takedown. What are you doing, dude? Please come on. And don't get me wrong, they finally did. But I don't know how Rodriguez can coax these other women into going down her path to victory for as long as they do when it's just so obvious you've got to put this chick flat on her back. Now, Amanda Ribas, she seems like a smart fighter to me. She seems very well-rounded like Locke was talking about. I think she's going to be competent enough on the feet. I still think Rodriguez is the better striker here, but dude, if you want to talk traps, if Ribas keeps this fight on the feet and just, shoots minimal takedowns or shoots one or two, doesn't get it, decides this fight plays out on the feet, Locke, you got a solid play, my man. I'm going to take Ribas. I feel like she should win. I know she should win, right? Is she going to get it done? I don't know, man. Women's MMA, I hate to say that so much, but it's just the truth, dude. These fights get real sketchy at times. Amanda Ribas is the pick for me. I'm feeling her by decision. It's the whole factor. It's the takedown defense of Rodriguez and the fact that she just looks so bad when she's flat on her back. I think Ribas has got to know, get her down, use what jiu-jitsu you have. If not, maintain position over submission and just keep this chick on the floor and cruise it to that decision. And that's going to be my pick on this one. Okay. All right. This is a good one here. Andrew Sanchez going up against Mahmoud Muradov. And Locke, I think you are the rightful guy on this one.
Yeah, I'll take it for sure. Now, Andrew Sanchez, last time around, goes out there and, like I said earlier in this podcast, Storch is Mr. What's his name? Wellington Turman in that first round. Not a lot of people were expecting him to go out there and do that, right? What do we know about Andrew Sanchez? The guy's a wrestler. The guy likes to grind on you, likes to take you down, likes to slow down the fight. But for some reason, we see him come out there with the wide karate stance, bouncing on the tip of his toes, and thinking that he has confidence in his hands, and it comes to fruition for him. Goes out there and knocks out Wellington Turman. Again, not a lot of people expected that to happen, myself included. You were expecting a grinding wrestling type fight from him, but now it seems like he's like, okay, I got to turn things around. Coming off a loss to Marvin Vettori, where I got absolutely clowned for 15 minutes. What do I got to do to really turn my game around? So let me get some confidence in my hands. I probably have some power in my hands, and he showed that exactly in his last fight. However, Cody touched on this a little bit too last time. He seems a little bit wild on the feet. So even though he looked good, he's putting some punches together, putting together 3, 4, 5 punch combinations. That's something we've never seen from Andrew Sanchez before. But he's a little bit wild when he throws them. So maybe he could get away with it against a guy like Wellington Turman, who, in my opinion, middle of the pack kind of guy, like lower end, middle of the pack kind of guy. Whereas here against Mahmoud Muradov, we're talking about a guy with solid striking, a very good understanding of the striking game, and a ton of experience too. Like, not often do you see guys that are this highly touted with this deep of a record coming into the UFC, 28, 30 fights into their career. And that's exactly what we got with Muradov. Now, we've only seen him in the cage twice. Came in relatively short notice against Alessio Di Chirico. Gas tanks seemed to fail him a little bit in that last round, but was still able to hold on long enough to get his hand raised in a judge's decision. Then in the next fight, Trevor Smith, we don't see, the competition there. Like, he's not really up there in level of competition, which is why Muradov was a huge favorite in that fight. And then obviously goes out there and dusts him in that third round and looks amazing doing so. Beautiful knockout as well, too. If you guys haven't seen it, I would highly suggest going back and watching that. But I truly think that if Sanchez wants to come out here and be a striker and try to fall in love with his hands because he knocked out the last guy that he fought, I think he's in for a little bit of a rough nightmare here. I think he's going to be kind of touched up on the feet. Muradov does a really good job of getting out of the way of big shots. He uses his length and range very well, too. He's going to have a little bit of a height and a reach advantage here, too, that I'm sure he's going to use to a T. And then I think it's going to force Andrew Sanchez to go to his wrestling. And what happens when Andrew Sanchez goes over to his wrestling? The guy starts huffing and puffing, and you don't want to be huffing and puffing with a guy that is able to pick you apart on the feet, just a guy like Mahmoud Muradov. And let's take it into consideration. This is the first ever fighter that Floyd Mayweather has signed from MMA to the money team. And I kind of found it weird because you would expect him, undefeated guy, to go out there and find another undefeated fighter to go out there and be like, hey, look, money team, we don't lose, baby. But this guy has like 4 or 5 losses on his record, but they're very early in his career. And you see him make improvements, and you see him get it better and better on a fight-to-fight basis. His last loss to that, I think Danny Ramirez is the guy's name. If you guys go back and watch that fight, that was a fight where he lost via injury. It says doctor stoppage. They're in this weird jostling position in the clinch, and you see Mahmoud kind of pull out his shoulder just kind of fall out of place. And he just waves over to the referee, says, I'm done. I can't continue. Goes out there, wins another 3-4 fights, comes back, fights the same guy, finishes that guy in the second round, makes a statement and be like, that wasn't a true loss on my record. Let me show you guys that I can go out there and beat this guy. And that's exactly what he did. So I truly believe that this guy is a top talent. I think he has massive amounts of potential in this middleweight division in the UFC. And I think the reason why the line is as close as it is because Andrew Sanchez got that big knockout last time around, and we've seen him come into the UFC or into that fight with a completely different game plan than we've ever seen from him before. So I think the recency bias is baked into the line, which is why we're not getting Muradov at -200. So I think we're getting a solid amount of value here on Muradov all the way up to -175. I bet him at that -140 range. That's where I think he's good at. But again, if you want to bet it all the way up to -175, -180, you're still getting some solid value. And I think we see him pull away with a decision victory. He could possibly get that third round stoppage if that cardio of Andrew Sanchez fails him again. But I like to play it safe. We'll go with the decision. I got Mahmoud Muradov picking him apart for 15 minutes.
Love it, Locke. I'm right there with you. Cody, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, Muradov certainly got the capabilities to go out there and knock out Sanchez, and maybe he's got a slight cardio advantage, I suppose, take it into some deeper waters, try to do the same thing he did against Smith. But here's my issue is that you haven't really seen Muradov against pure wrestlers. You haven't seen him against pure grapplers. You haven't seen him against guys that are just going to push him up against the cage or try to take him down the entire time. Against Alessio Di Chirico's not trying to take him down. And that's a fight that it's not super high output. It's not super fast paced. And Muradov does get tired a little bit. ends up getting the victory. Against Trevor Smith's a guy that had been knocked out 4 times in under a minute. Like his chin at times in his career has been questionable. But where does the guy still be able to get a victory? BJJ black belt, decent wrestling credentials. If he ends up on top, he's got okay top pressure. He shoots one single takedown against McMann Muradov. Didn't even try to take him down. Was just content staying there and getting beat up. Muradov knocks him out in the third. Now you got Muradov taking off another one of these 15-month layoffs. If the cardio is better than it was in the Smiths fight, great. That's going to play him good here. If the cardio goes back to the Tsarukyan fight because he hasn't been training hard, he's not in Las Vegas anymore, he had to go back home when the pandemic started, all these different things, then it's going to be a problem. Because one thing with Andrew Sanchez, he didn't do it in the Wellington tournament fight where he came swinging bombs. But prior to that, it's like he is very capable of spamming takedowns one after the other after the other. He's a former 2-time national champion. It was a NAIA, so he's a junior college national champion twice. And then this is a guy that proceeded to go to the K Dojo Warrior tribe in New Jersey, and that's where he spent 10 years of his career. He can wrestle. He's a very good wrestler. He's able to just grind, but that grinding pace does take it out of him. After 2 rounds, as everyone's mentioned, he starts to suck wind a little bit. He starts to get tired a little bit, and that's where guys can catch him. Anthony Smith caught him. Ryan James caught him. Those fights are like 5 years ago, though. It's a long time ago. Since then, you've seen Sanchez shore that up a little bit. Cardio's still not great, but he doesn't mind just sticking onto your legs and holding you up against the cage. Marvin Vettori defeats him and soundly defeats him, but has trouble at some points where it's like, man, this guy's just holding me up against the cage. Marcel Barrio actually looked competitive against Andrew Sanchez, but couldn't do nothing to get off the cage. Muradov will look competitive against Andrew Sanchez, but boy, oh boy, he better get off that cage. Because you don't want to be giving up takedowns to a guy who's a BJJ black belt in Sanchez, who has the wrestling credentials in Sanchez, who if he shored up his cardio even just a little bit and can sustain that pace, is going to be a serious problem. I think the fight goes the distance. It's minus 115 goes the distance, so you're looking at nearly even money. But if Muradov goes out there and does what he's capable of, then he's probably going to keep the fight standing, land the better shots. Sanchez is going to get desperate. The judges are going to look at significant strikes landed, maybe some damage done, general overall control, not so much a takedown and a little bit of ground control or a little bit of cage control here and there. So Muradov takes the decision. If Muradov shits in the apple pie and we've got Sanchez going hard on him, taking him down, rinse and repeat, I really don't think that Sanchez is knocking out or submitting McMann Muradov. So again, it would be by decision. The pick as far as this fight goes, I would take Muradov. I take Muradov by decision, which is like plus 350. It's a massive decision prop, to be honest, if you've got Muradov. You've just got to hope that Sanchez doesn't have that chin issue. And the last thing I want to mention is, even if you said Sanchez does have a chin issue, his chin is infinitely better than Trevor Smith's. Okay, let me tell you that straight first and foremost. Much better chin than Smith. And Smith still made it to the third round, late in the third round before succumbing to the punches. So it's not crazy to think that Sanchez does what he does against Vettori, and that's just hold him up against the cage, get on the leg, but overall not really score enough takedowns to win this fight, loses the decision. I'll have the decision prop. I'll have Muradov by decision, which is a huge price tag. But again, this is just not a fight that I love so much because one guy has the capabilities of Sanchez and just making this really painful to watch, really slow pace, really dull, but win the fight. And the last thing I want to get at is in Abu Dhabi, I don't know who the judges are going to be, but they're going to reward the guy that's trying to finish. They're going to reward the guy that's trying to throw those strikes. I don't think they're going to reward the cage control and, trying to slow it down, especially with a little bit of a live crowd, them getting involved. The feeling, the atmosphere will be one guy's trying to fight, one guy's trying to win points. It'll go towards Muradov in a close decision. This figures to be a relatively close decision, so I will stick with my guns and take McMann Muradov by decision.
Yeah, hey man, great point about the crowd and stuff like that. I really do think that plays into this fight. Guru, who you got?
Yeah, man, this is one of these fights that I've been going back and forth on this week. I do think, a lot of people, I don't want to say I do think that they overrate McMann Muradov. I don't think he's as good as, some people say, because I feel like he is a really good athlete and he has that movement. He comes in with those, really nice crosses. He has some nice knockouts, but he doesn't throw like a ton of combinations. And it seems like he's not really as good in the pocket. I mean, you saw in the third round when Tsarukyan was able to close that distance when he got a little bit tired. He was landing a lot of shots on the inside. He rocked Muradov a couple times, had him on the back foot. And I do think Andrew Sanchez, if he can, actually eat a couple of those punches and use his forward pressure to, dirty box, put him against the cage, make it an inside fight, he definitely has a big path to victory, because if if you watch that fight, the fight that Lock of the Night was referencing with the David Ramirez fight, I mean, in the first round, Muradov was getting taken down by Ramirez, and I think, Ramirez probably won that first round of the first fight that they did have. So, he was having some success even before the injury that Muradov had with the game plan that I could see Andrew Sanchez using. And Andrew Sanchez is a guy that's, way more experienced. These fought guys like Anthony Smith, people like that. He's been in the UFC for a long time. He won the Ultimate Fighter. So I do think Andrew Sanchez is definitely a live underdog here. I mean, he's won his 3 of his last 4 fights too. The one loss is to Marvin Vettori, who's, arguably a guy that's in the top 10, top 5 of the division. He did, come in as an underdog, get that big knockout over Wellington Turman. So definitely probably has some confidence right now. So I don't think that, Muradov is necessarily a super safe play. I feel like Sanchez could come in here and grind out a decision. But I do like the over, and I do think that it'll probably go to decision. And I'm going to go with Muradov. I just going to say that he maybe lands the more impactful shots and, is able to keep the range for a couple rounds, maybe win the 3rd round if Sanchez gets tired. But I could see Sanchez winning this fight easily for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough fight, man. And, it's like Muradov, I like what I see out of the guy. And when he first came into the UFC, I felt like I could see some blatant holes in his game. I really didn't like the striking defense. I know he's a pretty slick striker, but I felt like he didn't show enough respect to his opponents. Sanchez coming off that big KO. Muradov doesn't keep that chin tucked, man, which, I don't know if he needs to call up Floyd and learn a little something about not getting punched in the face. But yeah, it worried me, but I do feel like he's improved. I feel like Muradov shored up some of those things that I was a little bit worried about. Sanchez, the clear path to victory, right? Don't stand toe-to-toe with this guy, Get him up against the cage. Make it a dirty, grinding fight. But at the same time, man, a dirty, grinding fight, so exhausting. I just feel like, this fight's going to play out fairly close. But Cody, I think you nailed it with the judging aspect. If this fight goes to the scorecards, I think they're going to reward Muradov. I think he's going to be the guy, like you said, going for it, the guy that's trying to end the fight, the guy with the more meaningful shots, whereas Sanchez, needs to make it that boring, takedown-based, just grinding, dirty boxing style of fight. I mean, whoever can impose their will, I see winning the fight. I do see Sanchez possibly fading late in the 3rd, Muradov tuning him up, finishing strong. I'm going to lean that way. I'm going to lean Muradov. I'm going to take Muradov in this one, but I do think it's a little bit risky, but Muradov's the pick for me. Okay, and man, coming off that fight to this next one, we got Jessica Eye going up against Joanne Calderwood. And Cody, I think you're up on this one.
I think I'm going to stick on Joanne Calderwood in this spot. With Jessica Eye, I don't want to say it's someone that's got one foot out the door because clearly she's a fighter. Clearly she wants to compete. And I don't know if she sees herself doing anything else right now. But first of all, she's getting up there in age. She's been in the sport for a long time now. She's fought some of the best girls at 135, fought some of the best girls at 125, got a title challenge, fights Valentina Shevchenko. The way it ends is pretty emphatic. What do you do from here? But you just see she's made comments over the last number of years about not feeling like she's getting the respect. And, in Ohio, they weren't treating her properly. So she leaves there and she goes to Las Vegas and then talks herself into this title fight and loses the fight by head kick KO. I mean, it's just kind of like been some ups and some down spots for her. But you see her fight Cynthia Calvillo, and she comes in that spot and she misses weight, 131 pounds against Cynthia Calvillo. So was it a spot that she looked good in? Yeah, but is it because she missed weight? Possibly. You see in her next fight, same thing. Sorry, the fight with Calvillo, she misses weight by 0.3. Prior to that, she comes in, she misses weight by 5 pounds. Her making 125, I think, has been an issue. It's kind of not the proper weight class for her. She's kind of a bigger girl, I'd say. But it's hurting her performances in the long run. With Joanne Calderwood, I mean, yeah, she's got flaws as well. You can take her down. You can grind her. Her submission game is sometimes it looks like it's improving. Sometimes it looks like it's completely off. But if you want to stand up and have just a striking battle with her, she's got great technical Muay Thai. She's got great output, great volume. Someone that's easily able to land over 100 significant strikes. Someone who got robbed by to Caitlin Chukagian, in my opinion. Man, Joanne Calderwood's wrestling looked on point in that fight. 2 takedowns. Her striking looked on that point. Her volume looked good on point. Her cardio looked much improved. She was finally putting it all together. And then where she could have just waited for a title fight, she decides to take the stay busy, and the stay busy does not go her way. She unfortunately comes up on the losing end of it, and now it's kind of like those title aspirations are gone. But if Jessica Eye goes out there and has a striking battle with Joanne Calderwood, Jessica Eye's got the technical boxing advantage. I have to give her the crisper, like the better technique, the better hands. But Calderwood's just got the better output. She's got knees, she's got kicks, she's got way more versatility, she's got more diversity, elbows. I just think that she should be able to mix it in a little bit better, have more output. And with I making those bad weight cuts to 125, I feel like if you have a hectic fight, you have a quick pace fight, you take it into some deeper waters, that's kind of where you should be able to take rounds 2 or 3 at the very least. She needs to be able to win 2 of these 3 rounds. I think Calderwood's volume should be able to get it done. But again, we got a closely matched fight, women's MMA. Both girls have had spots where they've looked really good. Both girls have had spots where they've looked really bad. I thought that you'd be able to get a better read from her on the scales and being like, oh, it was a bad wake up. But like, there was just nothing I could really take away from it. My assumption is that her body getting older, making those weight cuts, is at some point it's going to catch up to her. You've seen that her last 2 fights. I think this will be a progression of that. Whereas Calderwood, she's getting up there in age as well, but can make the weight comfortable, needs a performance to get back on track and get back on people's mind. So give me Joanne Calderwood, and listen, this one's probably going to decision. I'm fairly certain it probably goes to decision. So again, to try to improve a little bit better on Calderwood, I'm going to chase that Calderwood by decision, if anything.
Solid stuff. Guru, who you going with?
Yeah, I mean, this fight could very well, be the next person that Valentina gets to fight. So I mean, it has some implications there. And, I do think, there is some interesting things about the fight. Like, Joanne Calderwood and Jessica Eye do kind of have a beef where, they've Joanne Calderwood just doesn't really seem to like Jessica Eye. They, go back and forth at each other on social media. They've, had run-ins at the UFC PI, stuff like that. And, it is Extreme Couture versus Syndicate too. So I'm sure both of them, do want to get the win. And I do think that Calderwood, she looked in a lot better shape at the weigh-ins for this fight than she did versus Jennifer Maia. I mean, when she fought Maia, she took that fight on a real short notice and just kind of stepped in there. And I mean, it was a risk. She gave up the title shot there. But when you're looking at the fight, like Cody said, I mean, it's basically going to be the boxing of Jessica Eye versus, the volume, the kicks, and kind of the more diverse game that Calderwood has, because I don't necessarily see Eye trying to take her down. And when you see a lot of JoJo's losses, especially in the UFC, I mean, she's been submitted in the first round 3 times where she kind of just starts slow, gets taken down, gets submitted. I would be very surprised if Jessica Eye went in there and took her down in the first round and got a submission. I just don't see her hitting takedowns. I don't even see her really going for takedowns. So I think it's going to be more on the feet. And when you look at it, I mean, JoJo, at least she's been to Abu Dhabi. She went there against Angela Lee. She did win a decision. She's had a lot better track record in decisions than Jessica Eye in the UFC. You've seen Jessica Eye lose a lot of decisions in the UFC, where I think JoJo has a 5-2 decision record. So she's better in that regard. And I do think, she throws more volume and she averages more takedowns. So I feel like JoJo, she should be able to get the win here. But Jessica Eye, I mean, if she could pressure and make it more a boxing-oriented fight, she definitely, could, edge it her way. But I'm going to go with JoJo here.
Right on. Locke, who you got?
Yeah, this is a tough fight. I kind of feel like it has split decision written all over it. And I say that as I believe that, Joanne Calderwood, she's a volume machine. Like, she's more often than not going out there and throwing 100+ strikes, or sorry, at least landing over 100+ strikes. She has that 8-point attack where she has her punches, she has her elbows, she has her kicks, she has her knees. Whereas Jessica Eye, we see that boxing heavy approach like these guys were touching on. I mean, and the one thing that I kind of like about her, and I've always kind of devalued her in my eyes, like I've just never really thought high of Jessica Eye, but when you watch her fights, and especially that Viviane Araujo fight, who we just saw have a very dominant performance against Roxanne Modafferi last time around, and that's probably not the greatest thing to say, but at least we saw that how dominant she could actually be when she's really on. We saw Jessica Eye kind of just stand up to that type of attack from Viviane Araujo, which was, anytime Araujo tried to close that distance and get her punches off and her striking off, Jessica Eye stood her ground and she threw right back at her. And I think that could potentially be the difference here, where, it looks like she wants to get you back for any time that you're trying to go out there and throw her and try to outstrike her. Now, if we see Joanne Calderwood kind of just like pot shot her kicks from the outside and just continuously moving on her bicycle, it might be a little bit harder for Jessica Eye to kind of catch her. But I see them more often than not kind of just going apart and coming together, and we're seeing possibly the boxing of Jessica Eye kind of look a little bit more damaging, a little bit more in the favor of the judges' eyes. And that's why I just don't have the best read on this fight. I can't pick either side here. I feel like if you go with the dog, you're probably getting a little bit of value, as I do believe that this is a 50-50 fight. You can even play even safer and take the over 2.5, because there's probably no way that this fight is going to get finished. I don't see either woman being able to either muster up a submission or even muster up a knockout of any sort. But we're getting like, what is it, minus 325 for the over 2.5 here. So rightfully so. It's obviously super chalky, right? But in terms of picking a side, I'm staying away. Like even my degenerate parlays I'm making, I'm putting in the over 2.5. I'm not even bothering with picking a side here. But if you guys are putting a gun to my head and making me choose a side, I'm going to go with the Jessica Eye side, as I believe that the boxing will make it a little bit more of an argument to the judges than the outside pick apart shots from Joanne Calderwood, who, again, she might look more busier, but who's the one actually doing the more damaging shots, as it'll look like? Because we've seen in the past where people might be able to go out there and throw a little bit more volume, but then if it looks like they're the ones getting touched up a little bit more, the judges probably will be siding with the side with that side, right? So I'm going with Jessica Eye. Absolutely no bet. Like I said, split decision written all over this. If you have the balls to go out there and put more than $1,000 on this fight, I definitely envy your balls to go ahead and do that. I don't think that anybody should be that confident in this fight, but I'll go with the Jessica Eye side to win this fight be a split decision.
Right on. Yeah, well, hey, one thing I want to talk about, just to point out in general, Jessica Eye, a surprising 34 years old. Joanne Calderwood, of super surprising to me, at least 35 years old. Like, she just does not come across that old. I don't know if it's the voice or what the deal is. She just looks really young. I'll give her props on that. But, I think this fight breaks down to this. Like, I think Eye lands the more impactful shots, but you look at the numbers, man. Calderwood, like, she puts up numbers that are honestly very surprising. Like, her output is very legit. Is it very impactful? No. But does it score well? Yes. We see a lot of these women's fights. It's whoever's busier, whoever's yelling more, whoever's, got the karate key eyes popping. And I'm thinking that's going to be Calderwood in this spot. I feel like if I was smart, she would take Calderwood down, but I just don't see it happening. I would highly recommend it if I were, an Eye's corner, training camp coach, all that stuff. But for some reason, I see this fight playing out on the feet. I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to end up taking Joanne Calderwood, and I'm totally with you guys, man. This one just seems to be going to a decision. Yeah, I got Calderwood winning by decision. I think the play in general, though, just might be fight goes to a decision, but you're not getting a great number, but I'm very confident it goes to a decision. The pick's Joanne Calderwood by volume. So what are we up to? Oh, boy.
Co-main, baby.
Co-main event, baby. Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler. And Guru, I think you're up.
Yeah, you guys said it. Co-main event, we got, the debut of Michael Chandler. This is probably, one of the most hyped up prospects to come to the UFC in a long time. I guess since, Ben Askren, even though I don't think Michael Chandler wants to be mentioned, have that type of run. But yeah, man, Michael Chandler, he's obviously, won the Bellator title. He lost it, won it back again, defended it a couple times. So he has had a long career outside the UFC. Dan Hooker, this is probably the biggest spot of his career, even though he's coming off a loss to Dustin Poirier. He's getting to co-main event a Conor McGregor card against a guy that had a spot as a, alternate for a UFC title fight. So it seems like he's not really getting to step down. He's kind of one favor in the UFC because that fight with Dustin Poirier was so sick, man. So I do think that it's a great fight. You see Michael Chandler, and he, is kind of he used to be just a prototypical wrestler with a double leg, but I do think that he's gotten better with the striking. He'll switch stances now. He is explosive, closing that distance with his straight right hand, and he will attack the body pretty well too, which we've seen Edson Barbosa kind of hurt Dan Hooker to the body before. So I do think that maybe Chandler will try to use those body shots to set up his takedowns, and then use the takedowns to try to win the fight. But I do worry about, his durability, because we've seen him knocked out in multiple fights. We've seen him get hurt with leg kicks, like in his fight with Brent Primus. Both fights with Brent Primus, he actually struggled with the low kicks, which is something that Dan Hooker is really good at. We saw in the fight with Benson Henderson, he struggled a lot the first fight with those knees to the body, up the middle, the front knees, which, that's Dan Hooker's thing, man. So I do think that Chandler when he's on the feet in the first round, I do think obviously Hooker is hittable, and Chandler does have those missiles with the crosses, man. He can close distance. He'll throw that, the straight right, left hook, which he dropped Brent Primus with. And, obviously he had that switch stance straight left hand that he dropped Benson Henderson with. So he has power in that first round. Hooker is a hittable guy. I actually think that's more of his path to victory. I do see some people saying they could see him, wrestling to a decision, which, is another way he could win. But I just see the damage adding up too much if it starts going into the later rounds with the leg kicks, with the counters, the jab. I think that on the feet, Chandler loading up is going to give Dan Hooker a lot of opportunities to just jab him, keep him at range, and, start to piece him up, put damage on him. And I think that the body shots and the leg kicks are going to slow down Chandler too. And, if Chandler can hit the takedowns, I'm not 100% convinced he's going to be able to hold Dan Hooker down and control him. So I do think that Hooker is going to be the side that I pick. But like I said, I think that Chandler, if he wins, I do think it's going to be more him getting a first round knockout. I don't think that he's going to be able to, take the damage that Hooker's going to give him over 3 rounds and win a decision. So I'm going to go with Dan Hooker, and I actually think he's going to get him out of there by KO TKO. I was actually surprised at how much bigger Hooker was this week at all the face-offs and stuff over Chandler. So I do think Chandler obviously is a live underdog. He's obviously coming in here with a lot of motivation. If he wins this fight, he'll almost most definitely get a title shot. So he definitely has a lot to win here, but I'm actually going to go with Dan Hooker.
Sounds good to me. Locke, who you got?
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to our guy Ben in the chat, who brings up a very good point. Now, we've had a ton of Bellator champions come over: Hector Lombard, Ben Askren, Eddie Alvarez. But the one thing the UFC has never done is actually say former Bellator champion. They always go by the other champion in another promotion. They never give Bellator that shine. And I truly think they want to go that angle here with Michael Chandler in case he does go out there and knocks out Dan Hooker. You want to get put on the map. You want to have as much hype behind you. And people may have heard of Bellator kind of just in passing, like, oh, that's probably like the second tier league just to get to the UFC, right? So let's build him up as much as possible. Now, a fact that I kind of brought up last night on the show as well, and I'm going to bring it up again here too, is we've had a ton of lightweight prospects come over from other organizations, and the last 6 that I could come up with went 3-3. So we'll start off with the losses. We had Anthony Pettis come over from WEC. He was originally supposed to get the lightweight title shot right off the bat so they can unify the titles. We obviously know what happened at UFC 125 with Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard going to a draw. They have to reschedule to another fight. So Anthony Pettis is like, you know what? I'm not sitting around. I'm not waiting any longer. Give me Clay Guida. I'll take the Clay Guida fight. We all remember what happens there. Clay Guida goes out there and just grinds him out for 3 rounds. The next one up, Eddie Alvarez goes out there and fights Donald Cowboy Cerrone, one of the mainstays in the UFC, one of the main guys that were like, okay, he is our barometer in terms of whether other guys are ready for title shots or whether we should give them a push or not. Cowboy Cerrone goes out there and soundly beats him 30-27. Gilbert Melendez comes over from Strikeforce and faces Ben Henderson, who was the champion at the time. Very close fight, but still ends up coming out on the losing end. So those are 3 legitimate UFC guys that we can kind of more often than not depend on. Now, the guys that came into the UFC and fought other lightweights, we got Justin Gaethje, who's WSOF champion, comes in and fights Michael Johnson, and he wins that fight. Will Brooks just ekes out a decision over Ross Pearson. And then Ben Henderson goes out there and soundly beats Mark Bocek. What I'm trying to get at is, where do we rank Dan Hooker in that name, right? I kind of rank him closer to the Donald Cowboy Cerrones, the Ben Hendersons of the 2013, 2014 era. I think he's up in that range, where I think Michael Chandler now, he's going to be 35 in April. I think he's coming in a little bit too late now. I think his time has kind of passed him. He missed his prime to truly capitalize on his skills and the things that he brings to the table. And we've seen it kind of just come to fruition in his last couple of fights. He goes out there in the Brent Pyramis rematch, drops him in the first round. Great first round. Controls him for the majority of the first round. The second round, gets dropped himself, and then luckily is able to survive, turn the tables, and start using his wrestling the entire time for the rest of the fight. Uses his wrestling, plays the safest path to victory. Then he goes out there and gets knocked out by Patricio Pitbull. Goes out there, knocks out Sidney Outlaw, mainly a grappler if you guys know who he is. And then he goes out there and knocks out Ben Henderson of 2020. Not the biggest feather in your cap at this point in time. Now you're telling me you're going to go out there and fight a top lightweight in Dan Hooker, who just had a very competitive fight against Dustin Poirier, where they're hurting each other back and forth. Even Paul Felder, there's an argument he possibly lost that fight, but we saw great skills from him in that fight too. I think he has all the tools here to take full advantage of that 4-inch height advantage that he's going to have, as well as that 6-inch reach advantage. And Gru talked about it. That leg kicking game that he implemented on Ally Quinta seems like it'll be very, very helpful and useful in this fight against Michael Chandler. I think he'll be very successful in doing that as well. So I think Hooker keeps him on the outside. And I also think that Hooker has a very underrated jiu-jitsu game too. So if Michael Chandler is starting to shoot desperation takedowns, he's got to be very careful about his neck that he doesn't get snatched up. We have seen Dan Hooker pull off some guillotine victories as well too. So I like Dan Hooker here. I think this is a solid spot for him. We're seeing the line kind of close now. I got him at -125. I think that's a great line to play him at. Again, I just think this is too far past the prime of Michael Chandler. And unfortunately for him, he's going to catch his first L here in the UFC in his debut. Probably not the best look. He might be able to go out there and get some good victories other against middling lightweights, but I don't think he's going to be able to smash that lightweight ranking and get into that top 3. So I'm going with Dan Hooker. I could see him possibly get live for a finish as well too. We've seen we've seen Chandler very much hurt in past fights, and I think that Dan Hooker could absolutely follow up. Again, chip away at that leg first. Let's damage that calf. Let's immobilize Michael Chandler a little bit, and then let's start getting the hands going and try to take him out that way. So I'm going with Dan Hooker, KO probably. I'll say second round. Let's give him a round to settle in, get that leg kicking game going. Hopefully stop a couple takedowns, maybe threaten him with some submissions, but then finally finish him in that second round.
I can dig it. Cody Saftic, shoot.
Yeah, I think you go for the under 2.5 rounds. I mean, someone's getting put away in the spot. Michael Chandler's got big striking, man. He's very fast. He's very dynamic. He's one of the better athletes you're going to see. His downfall is that he's 35 years old and he doesn't have great durability. So it's tough to be jumping into the heat of the UFC, taking on the best guys in the world when, let's be real, I mean, yeah, he hasn't really, his best days were spent in Bellator. You got to realize that. And when people talk about Dan Hooker, they say, oh, geez, Hooker's been taking a lot of damage. That Edson Barboza fight, oh, buddy. The Paul Felder fight, oh, my God. The Dustin Poirier fight last time out, oof. Chandler's had a whole body of work, same thing. He fought Eddie Alvarez twice. They were car wrecks. He fought Will Brooks twice. He was on the shellacking end, both sides. Patricio Pitbull Freite, the GOAT featherweight, yeah, as far as not being in the UFC. But like little featherweight Patricio jumps up and completely cold-cocks him. His leg gives out against Brent Primus. He's hurt the second time against Brent Primus. Benson Henderson in the first fight hurts him in the body, tires him out. Like he's taken a lot of damage. Now at 35 to be coming to the UFC, like there's this aura that we expect him to jump right into it. A lot of UFC-based fans that don't watch other organizations, they don't know who this guy is, but now they're being fed this line of just like, so good. Trains with Kamaru Usman and he's so good. It's like, there are levels to this, and he's jumping in there with a tough fight. The other thing, too, is that if with Hooker, like he can kind of do it all a little bit. His striking's come a long way. His cardio is much improved. He's got a nasty jab. He's got good kicks, but the leg kicks, right? Hooker does them exceptionally well. That is a tool that would definitely work against Michael Chandler. The knees up the body, they would work extremely good against Michael Chandler. You know, him knocking out Jim Miller, him knocking out Gilbert Burns, like you see how how he sets it up. Those are all going to work against Michael Chandler. Being able to go 5 rounds with Paul Felder in a war, being able to go 5 rounds with Dustin Poirier in a war, that's the Edson Barboza fight. Like, my God, most people would have stopped that multiple times over, but it's like, he's got this ability to take the damage, and that's kind of what separates them, is that Chandler can't take that kind of damage, whereas Hooker's never been knocked out. Hooker's been in there with a lot of heavy hitters, has taken some bad beatings, but it's like his chin does check out. So if this ends up being a dirty fight where both guys start to get a little bit tired, Hooker probably pulls away with it. The thing is that the wrestling, I got to mention the wrestling. Michael Chandler is a far better wrestler. He should be able to get this fight down when he wants. Hooker loves to attack off the back. He's got nasty elbows off his back. He will throw up some submissions, but ultimately Chandler's got a big speed advantage and he's got the wrestling advantage. So he'd be best suited to go to the body, box this guy up a little bit, and then shoot that takedown. This is a 5-round fight. I'm probably not considering Michael Chandler all that much. But in a 3-round fight, he can rinse and repeat. And the last thing is, just because Hooker's never been knocked out, it doesn't mean that Michael Chandler can't be the guy that puts you out. He's got nasty power in his hands, and that's the one thing with Dan Hooker. As much as you might love the guy, as much as he's a fan favorite, as much as he's got these fight of the nights, he is so unbelievably hittable, man, that no doubt about it, Michael Chandler is going to hit him. Is Hooker going to stand up to those punches the same way he did against everybody else? Potentially. but potentially not, man. I mean, seeing Benson, who's been known for having a cast iron chin over the years, seeing him get folded up, you do see Chandler. Whenever Chandler does look suspect, whenever it looks like, all right, this guy's his next performance is always good again. Like, he's not someone that loses back-to-backs and doesn't come back. He's not someone that looks like he's on a downhill trajectory, but his pace, his volume, his style, his grindiness, his taking damage. And I do think that at 35, he's probably only got 3 good fights left in him. They're going to give him the Hooker fight. If he's to beat Hooker, he's getting slotted in for a title fight. They're going to fast track him as quick as they can. But Hooker is a dangerous fight to be taking. I want to say dog or pass. I think both guys got the shot to win it, but honestly, with Dan Hooker, he does got more tools at his disposal. He is the more durable guy. He could knock out Michael Chandler in the first couple rounds. He could knock him out in the third round if it gets to that point. But with Chandler, it's like that first round is going to be absolute hell or high water. He's going to put it on him. He's going to be much faster. And so this is another good spot, I think, that you would earmark for a live betting opportunity. Chandler doesn't really lose first rounds, like he's so dynamic, he's so fast that he will put it on you. And with Hooker, we've seen that, maybe sometimes he's a slow starter, not his last fight against Poirier, but sometimes he's a bit of a slow starter. I could see Michael Chandler winning that first round. But if Michael Chandler doesn't put him away, and who's knocking out Hooker in the first round? Let's be real here. If he doesn't become the first man to do so, then you're going to see live dog Hooker in that second or third, maybe come back. Hooker's got excellent cardio. He should be able to tie it all together. But looking at how's Michael Chandler going to win this fight? Probably by knockout if he does become the first man. And Michael Chandler by KO is like plus 650. It's a huge prop. Hooker's there to be hit. Chandler is going to hit him. It's how much confidence you have in Hooker's durability. And so to this point, he's given us no reason to question him. And so maybe you ride with him one more time. But this is going to be a good fight. You're basically, if you're buying this pay-per-view, which I hope you are, because I can't sit here and legally tell you not to. But listen, you're buying 2 fights. You're buying the headliner, the McGregor fight, and you're buying this co-main event. You're not buying the 2 women's fights. You're not buying Andrew Sanchez versus McMann Muradov. Let's be real. You're going to get your money's worth in these top 2 fights. And I think Chandler versus Hooker is going to be an unbelievably good, close fight. Close as long as it lasts. But somebody's going to fall over. And for that reason, the under 2.5 seems like the way to go.
Right on. Yeah, for me, man, I'm going to put it like this. Michael Chandler, too little, too late, baby. I think the size of Hooker is going to be one of the biggest factors of this fight. It is dramatic. He's going to have, I want to say, at least 6 to 8 inches of reach. Guru, you talked about the step-in knee. And, another big thing for me is Chandler, that 35 years old, coming out of Bellator. This is his first go-round with USADA. Take that for what you will. But, I just think Hooker, I think he's going to land his shots. I think he's going to be able to hang. I don't see him letting Michael Chandler get inside and do his work. I think Chandler is going to land some good shots, but we've seen Dan Hooker eat tremendous shots. One thing else that I want to talk about too is Dan Hooker talking about that Dustin Poirier fight and how he was very disappointed in himself that he allowed himself to eat so much damage, kept the hands low, all that stuff. I'm imagining to myself that he's going to really focus on, longevity, right? Career longevity. I think he's going to shore up some of those problems. Now, don't get me wrong. You go in there, you get tired, you get hit with a few shots. That can all go out the window, and it's Dan Hooker with his hands down, eating bombs from Michael Chandler, right? But I do think he's going to be better. My thing is that fight with Dustin Poirier, right? That was 1 round away from us potentially talking about tomorrow, this totally being inverted. This could have been a Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor against a Dan Hooker. That fight was very, very close. And that end of the second round, if there's another 10 or 15 seconds, Hooker might have took Dustin out. He kind of got saved by the bell there. I just feel like Dan Hooker at this point is going to be too much for Michael Chandler. I understand Chandler is championship level, but Guru, you touched on, this is a guy that lost to Brent Primus. Cody, you talked about, this is a guy that just got absolutely zapped by, one of the Pitbull brothers, and a guy who's had problems with guys that I just don't think are on Dan Hooker's level. If Dan Hooker goes out there and just is Dan Hooker, I think he wins this fight more often than not. The pick for me is Dan Hooker. I'm not really sure how it plays out. I feel like a finish could be in the cards either way. But for me, it's Dan Hooker, and honestly, I'm fairly confident. A little bit tricky, debuting guy coming into the UFC, but I like Dan Hooker. I like where his head's at. All the intangibles, the measurables, stylistic matchup. Chandler is going to have to get inside, land the big bombs, and hit those takedowns. I think the takedown defense of Dan Hooker's going to be good enough to negate it. And if he does get taken down, I think he'll have the get-up game. I think that a guillotine could be in play here. Chandler gets in. The Hangman's snatched up a few necks in his day. But Guru, you talked about that step-in knee, man. I see that step-in knee playing into this fight, being as there is such a height discrepancy here. Okay, boys. Oh, well, hold up. Let's not move on just yet. My man Locke's got one last thing to say before we get to this main event.
Just in addition to what you ended off with, plus 1150 Hooker by sub. Continue.
Ooh, I like it. Good. Thank you for throwing that in there, Locke. That might be worth a sprinkle. Okay, boys. It's time. It's the big time. Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor. The first Conor McGregor fight we've ever got to go over on this show. And I can't wait to talk about it. And I think it's lock of the night kicking us off here.
Yeah. Again, this fight, UFC 178, the first time they met back in 2013. We obviously know what happened. Conor McGregor goes out there and absolutely stiffs him in that first round. And that was the first big victory for Conor that a lot of people start to legitimize him with, right? And before that, he beats Diego Brandao and he beats all these other guys. And everybody's like, okay, he's supposed to knock these guys out. But Dustin Poirier had a couple main events under his belt at that point in time. Obviously still a young gun at that point in time. But, was definitely a name on the map that a lot of people thought would give Conor McGregor some issues and be like, okay, if Conor passed this test, he's probably the real deal. So he goes out there, knocks out Poirier. Then he gets that Dennis Seaver fight, his first main event fight night in Boston, huge event. You get the Irish crowd out there. You get that Conor McGregor train rolling, gets that win there. Then you're scheduled to fight Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo pulls out. You get the Chad Mendes fight, wins the interim title, then goes out there, starches Jose Aldo, and the Conor McGregor show is off and rolling, right? That's where we've gotten to. That's how we've gotten to where we are now. But I think both guys obviously had a ton of fights in that amount of time. Dustin Poirier obviously way more active, not making those dollar bills that we got Conor McGregor going out there and making hundreds of millions of dollars. So Poirier's got to go out there and fight as consistently as possible to make as much money as possible. And he's had some wars in that time. Goes out there, beats Max Holloway, secures the interim lightweight title, secures a title shot against one Khabib Nurmagomedov. And we see obviously how that fight goes, completely outmatched. But who isn't, right? You got Khabib, one of the greatest of all time. Then he goes out there and he redeems himself with a victory over the man in the co-main event, Dan Hooker. Great performance there. Again, a slugfest, takes so much damage, eats so many shots, but still standing there for the final bell, gets his hand raised. Now he's going up against Conor McGregor again, who we've seen in that amount of time have, at the loss to Nate Diaz and the win over Nate Diaz after that. And then he goes out there and he beats Eddie Alvarez, secures the title there, goes out there, has the Floyd Mayweather fight. One thing that we always see consistent with Conor in that amount of time is his precision and power never really leaves him. The Nate Diaz fight, we see a completely different approach from him the second time around because he can't take his chin. Nate Diaz has a legendary chin. Josh Thompson's chin, the only thing that was able to separate Nate Diaz from his consciousness, right? So there's no way he was going to knock out Nate Diaz. He takes a very leveled approach and he goes out there and wins a 5-round fight. The next time we see him in a 4-round fight, we didn't even see him in the 5th round. We see him in a 4-round fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Cardio looks decent to start off that 4th round, but then obviously the takedown comes and he starts to get sucked out, and his win, it just completely goes away. What we have to go off of in case this fight does go 5 rounds is that we've seen Dustin Poirier in this 4th and 5th rounds way more. And we've seen on all 6 judges' scorecards, he's won rounds 4 and rounds 5 in both of those fights. All 6 judges gives him the round. So we know that he can go out there, put on a pace, put some volume on, and win those rounds. Whereas Conor McGregor, I feel like we still have question marks regarding his cardio the farther this fight goes. I feel like Dustin Poirier would definitely be the more active fighter, even though Conor might be able to kind of maintain the distance well. He uses his kicks very well, spinning back kick, even the teep up the middle. He always uses it to kind of manage his distance and gauge how far away his opponent is so that he can just land that Celtic cross of his, right? However, I'm trying to run the tape. I've done the studying. I've dug into the facts, the statistics, and everything. And I'm still coming out on the other side thinking that Conor McGregor goes out there and does this guy in the first round. The chin is still there to be hit. Conor McGregor, only 32 years old. You know what I mean? He's still a young pup, at least in terms of not taking as much damage as guys like Dustin Poirier has. He's going out there and just cleaning these guys' clocks clean. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, the most recent victim of his. And I feel like this Dustin Poirier stylistically is a great matchup for him for 2 rounds. If it gets into the 3rd round, things get a little bit iffy. I'm not sure if the power of Conor will translate the later that this fight goes. And I think it might make it a much more even fight the later it goes. But I just have a hard time seeing Conor not finding that chin in those first 2 rounds. And I have a hard time seeing Dustin Poirier standing up to those strikes. So again, I wanted to find the value as much as possible on Dustin Poirier here because the line is great. You know, I mean, you're getting into that plus 240, plus 250. The line's starting to come down a little bit now too because I think people are buying into that Poirier has a chance part, but I'm not. I want to. Trust me, guys. I want to, but I can't here. I think Conor still goes out there, gets his hand raised by knocking Dustin Poirier out in round numero uno.
Dig it. Cody, who you got?
Yeah, last time they fought, it was kind of an emotional buildup, and Conor saying, I'm going to sleep this guy in the first round. And then you see them at weigh-ins today, and it was like totally different. Like they were buddy-buddy. We're going to go out, get paid, have a good time. But that could be a mental warfare from Conor, right? Where it's like, hey, we're buddy-buddy, and then he's going to jump on you and get a quick start. He did the same thing with Donald Cerrone. Oh, you're a legend, man. You're a legend. And as soon as the fight starts, he gives him no time to breathe. He jumps on him right away. Last time both guys fought, think about how much has changed, right? But then in the grand scheme of things, think about how nothing has changed. Conor McGregor is still that one-punch guy. He's very quick. He's very precise. His counter-punching abilities. He's one of the sharpest, most dynamic strikers. He only needs one to hit. Dustin Poirier is still that blue-collar, hardworking man that's going to take a lot of damage, but has got heart for days. I mean, MMA Lock was talking earlier in the show about envying people's balls. Well, Dustin Poirier has a set of balls that I could see somebody trying to envy. The guy's just been in there multiple times over. He's super tough, but he's there to get hit. And you see, you know, these great performances, and he beats Eddie Alvarez and he beats Justin Gaethje, and he's picking up these huge wins. He is getting hit. Every time he's out there, he's taking a little bit of damage for the most part against upper echelon guys. The guys that have had that touch of death, Conor McGregor knocked him out. Michael Johnson, Poirier was lighting Michael Johnson up till Michael Johnson landed that right hand, put him out. Is there a path of victory for Conor to knock this guy out? Absolutely. He just needs to find that shot. And then lucky for him, Poirier is there to be hit. I mean, Locke actually made an incredibly good point when he mentioned this is close to being Hooker versus McGregor, Poirier versus Chandler. Like, Hooker goes out there, he soundly wins the first round, he lands him. The second round especially, 66 significant strikes landed by Hooker. He is putting on an absolute beating on Dustin Poirier. If this round's a little bit longer, Poirier might fold over. Poirier's even got his hands on his hips at one point, looks completely exhausted. Through 2 rounds of Dan Hooker putting a beating on him. But Dan Hooker can put a 3-4 punch combination on you, and you might be able to live to tell the tale. Conor doesn't hit you with 3-4 punch. It's going to be one laser right hand, one laser left hand. The Cerrone combination, that's a full combination where everything hits perfectly in, like, you know, perfect crescendo. It's like Conor's just, he is still that special guy. Can he fight Floyd Mayweather? No. He had no chance, never had a chance, can't outbox Floyd Mayweather. Can he beat Khabib? No. I mean, it's the greatest grappler against a very, very one of the greatest strikers. Grappling is going to win. But there's no denying that Conor McGregor is a special talent. You may not like him. You might not like him punching out old men in bars. You may not like him smacking up strippers at the club and doing a line of cocaine off the ace. You may not like that stuff. But you can't deny that he's a special talent, man. And when you look at his losses, it's like, oh, man, the Nate Diaz fight. It's like he didn't know he was fighting Nate Diaz. He took the fight on like a day's notice and moved up to 170 pounds to make it happen, right? Looked good early, tired out. Well, what about the second Nate Diaz fight? Man, he got tired in those middle frames. He hit Nate Diaz 164 significant times and won rounds 1, 2, and 5. Okay, so was his cardio bad? I don't know. He won the 5th round against Nate Diaz the second time. And there's the key. He hit him 164 times. Diaz can take that. Dustin Poirier is not going to get hit 164 times and live up to it. I don't think. Not against Conor anyways. And then the Khabib fight, right? It's so many memes, and we love to laugh about Conor. Here's a very interesting stat for you, right? Conor McGregor landed 51 significant strikes on Khabib. That is the most any fighter in the UFC has ever landed on Khabib Nurmagomedov by quite a margin. The next highest one is 44. Right, but we like to laugh about Conor. What a joke. What a joke. He was stuffing takedowns against Khabib. Chain wrestling cost him, as it's going to cost anybody who goes against Khabib. But he was landing his shots. He did look prepared. He did look fluid. And then he comes out against Donald Cerrone and shows you guys want to talk about levels? This guy is not even close to my level. I'll take him out in under a minute. And now he gets Dustin Poirier. It's a cool story. It's a run me back. Poirier's tough. But like being tough ain't enough, man. You got to get this guy down. You got to do something else. You got to do some variables because Conor's very dangerous for the first 10 minutes. Beyond that, if Conor does not knock out Dustin Poirier in the first 10 minutes, you hedge the fuck out of those bets, man. Because, yeah, there's that sense that Poirier is going to probably take those later rounds, maybe like he did against Dan Hooker. I just don't think that it's going to make it that far. I don't think he goes through what he did against Dan Hooker and comes out on the other side against Conor. I think Conor's going to land flush on his chin and topple him over. And yeah, like I don't want to come off sounding like a McGregor nut hugger, but I think that his path to victory is KO in under 1.5, certainly in under 2 rounds. And I think that he's primed for a victory here. This is good for his brand. When you're Conor, you can fight anybody. You can fight an adamant object, and you're going to sell 1 million pay-per-views. People just want to see him fight. Okay. He's trying to get Diego Sanchez to fight, right? He called out Donald Cerrone. That was the fight he wanted. He chooses the opponent, right? The UFC didn't go to him and say, would you like to fight Dustin Poirier? No. He came to the UFC. They said, who would you like to fight? And he said Dustin Poirier. You're not fighting Justin Gaethje. He doesn't want that fight. He didn't want the Tony Ferguson fight. He sure as shit don't want the Charles Oliveira fight. He wants this fight. And then this fight will talk him into the Khabib fight, which the only reason he wants that is because there's so much money to be made off of that he'll take it. Doesn't matter. And there seems to be some type of personal vendetta. I don't know. I don't care. What I'm getting at, though, is you're playing on Conor's territory by Conor's rules, under Conor's circumstances. He looks in incredible shape. I think that this one's a repeat of the first time. Maybe not in 90 seconds. Maybe it goes a few minutes. Maybe even gets out of the first round. But I don't see it getting out of the second round. So Conor McGregor by knockout.
Love it. Guru, wrap this up and take us on home, buddy.
Yeah, man. When you look at this fight, it's basically, to me, I don't think a lot has changed in terms of, like they said, the style of how they fight. Like Poirier is still a pressure brawler that's a hittable guy and needs to wear you down, whereas Conor is still that, that one punch guy that maybe has cardio issues in the later rounds. And the only thing that's different, I guess, is I do think, obviously, like you guys are hinting at, the mindset that both these guys are coming into the fight is way different. I don't think that Dustin is as, pent up. So I do think that maybe that'll help him out. Maybe he will be looser in the fight, especially in the beginning, and not get knocked out so quickly. But ultimately, man, it's just hard to see him eat those shots that Conor McGregor is going to land, like that straight left hand, because you always see Dustin, especially when he fights southpaws, he tends to struggle. He gets hit with that left hand all the time, like he did against Dan Hooker as well. And, it is going to be interesting because at 155, Hooker did say, that Poirier, he feels is one of the biggest guys in the division. I think he weighed in like 183 pounds when he fought Hooker for that fight. So he is going to be a lot bigger. That'll maybe, help his durability. Maybe he could kind of lean on Conor a little bit in the clinch, stuff like that. But I don't necessarily see Poirier having a lot of success at hitting takedowns necessarily. And I just don't think he's going to be able to eat those shots from Conor in the first 2 rounds. I think maybe he'll be able to, the first round, kind of, move around more and just be weary of the power that Conor has so he could last a little bit longer. But ultimately, I still think Conor's going to be able to land that one shot. And like Cody was saying, I mean, there's all those outer things about Conor where, a lot of people tend to dislike him and they, kind of, offset his resume, everything that he's done. I mean, at lightweight, you could say he's only 1-1, but, he's had a lot of great performances in the UFC, man. He's already knocked out some of the best fighters in the world, in really quick fashion, so I just don't think that Poirier is going to be able to go in there and take the shots. If he does and gets into that 3rd round, I mean, obviously, it's probably Poirier's fight to lose at that point, but I also think that Conor's cardio, questions are a little bit overblown. Like Cody was saying, he did show that, he could win a later round against a guy like Nate Diaz, and he throws a lot of strikes per minute, man. I mean, I think Poirier throws a little bit more just because of how high volume is, but Conor throws a lot of strikes. He's very, very active and really tries to pour it on in those early rounds. So I just feel like he's going to be able to get Poirier out of there. But, in terms of the line, I think that maybe just bet on the under 1.5, and then maybe bet on Poirier or something if you think that he could win, because, the under 1.5 is plus money, whereas, Conor is like at a -300, where I just don't feel comfortable, even though, Conor already beat Dustin once and, we're all probably going to pick him, laying, -300 against a guy like Dustin Poirier, who's, a legend of the UFC, it's kind of hard to do for me. And, if you watch the first fight, I mean, some people do kind of, say that, he could have been to the back of the head, stuff like that. So, I mean, who knows? There was some controversy a little bit, but I still think Conor's going to be able to land that left hand, and I just don't think that Poirier is going to take it. So I'm going to go with Conor for sure.
Sounds good to me. You know what? So check this out, right? This is a point, and Cody, you touched on it a little bit, man, but I want to take people back almost probably a year ago. So Conor McGregor was planning to box Manny Pacquiao, right? Southpaw Manny Pacquiao, okay? Conor McGregor said, you know what? I need somebody to loosen up with. I need somebody to acclimate a little bit to Southpaw. Conor McGregor handpicked Dustin Poirier in what was supposed to be a charity boxing match, if you remember, is how this all kicked off, right? Now, Daddy Dana said, Conor McGregor don't get in the ring without me getting a cut. That brings us to today, right? That brings us to these guys squaring off in the octagon. There was no matchmaking involved. Conor McGregor got to pick out of the hundreds of guys, the longest line in the world of people who are just lining up, dying to get a Conor McGregor fight. And there's a reason for that, right? It's the red panty night. He's going to change your bum life, okay? You're going to make more money fighting Conor McGregor than potentially every fight of your career combined. And it's just the truth at this point. He's McGregor. He's the biggest star in the game. He's the biggest star we've ever had in the game. And for that reason, Conor McGregor, again, it's why did Conor McGregor handpick Dustin Poirier back in 2014? He sees the struggles with the southpaw. He sees the holes. He sees where his game perfectly fits into the puzzle piece that is the weakness of Dustin Poirier. Now, do I think Conor McGregor is going to go out there and just blow Dustin Poirier out of the water? I think it's absolutely possible. I think we could see a 60-second KO. I think we see a first-round KO or a second-round KO Conor. That's what I'm feeling. But we know Dustin Poirier has a path to victory here. It's to make it dirty. Number one, he just needs to get past those first 2 rounds, right? Make it grimy, bloody, just make it a war of attrition. Who's got more heart? Who wants it more? That's how Dustin Poirier is going to win this fight. Because I definitely don't see Dustin Poirier coming out there and starching Conor McGregor in the first 2 rounds. Who's ever knocked out Conor McGregor, right? Crazier things have happened, but the pick for me is Conor McGregor, first or second round KO. And I think I like that under 1.5 quite a bit. So there you go. UFC 257. We broke it down. It only took us 2 hours and 20 minutes, baby, but we made it. I'm going to throw it around the horn before we get out of here. Guru, tell them where to find you.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate everyone in the chat tonight. We had a lot of people, and should be an awesome card tomorrow. So yeah, you could check me out at MMA Prediction Guru on YouTube and Prediction MMA on Twitter. I'm always down to talk fights with people that want to talk fights. So once again, man, really appreciate everyone that showed up, and yeah, let's get into these fights tomorrow.
Absolutely. Lock of the night. Where you at?
Yeah, you guys can find me at MMA LOTN on Twitter, at MMA LOTN on IG as well, and then obviously MMA LOTN on the YouTubes. Yeah, I'll be doing a live fight day stream tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, where we just do our last minute thoughts, just all about the chat. Shout out anybody that wants to hop in there and just talk fights on fight day. But yeah, I'm super excited to get this super fight week over with, and we end off with a bang here. So I'm really excited. And just a reminder, there's no fights January 30th, so soak up all the fights you can tomorrow, because we got next weekend off, and then we're back at it for February 6th. So make sure you guys enjoy the fights as best as possible tomorrow. But yeah, I'm super psyched. Let's get it going.
Cody Saftic, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, on Tuesday we went for over 2 hours, but we had 14 fights. Tonight we only got 11 fights, and we're still going over 2 hours. And honestly, it's just great chatting fights with you guys. I read all the comments as well. It's been a very lively chat tonight. Tons of people, a lot of good Discord, a couple idiots here and there. But that's not a shot at anybody. I'm sure they know who the idiots are as well. We don't really have a great moderator system going on. However, it's a shout out to the community. There's some really great people. I really appreciate you guys taking the time again. And yeah, we've got a really fun offering tomorrow. So let's get at it and keep the ball rolling. As Locke mentioned, then we're going to have a 1 week break. But considering we had 3 cards in 7 days, I think a couple people are at least ready for a breather. That'll give us time to gather our thoughts, get back together. And yeah, we can't wait to see you guys again.
Absolutely. I'm Bleed. I've been your host. Big thank you to these guys. Come check out my channel. Find me on Twitter, Instagram. I got it all, baby. You know what's up. Thank you guys so much for getting in the chat. Some great points, some pretty hilarious comments. It is what it is. We let some stuff slide. You know what I'm saying? We got to keep it a little bit lively down here. But it's been a great show, man. Best of luck to everybody. Cash those tickets. Odds.com, Odds HQ. Be sure to subscribe. Go to the website. Everything good. We are out of here.